Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Ladies and gentlemen, the motion picture you're about to see contains scenes so terrifying, the public must be given grave warning.
Hello and good afternoon. Let me get this. What is it? There it is. No. I cannot get the banner up for some reason. But welcome everybody to the Bloody Binge. There we go. Bloody Binge Movie Podcast. I am your host, Sewer Dweller, coming to you live about an hour late. And of course, joining me as always, Friday.
Hi.
This week, we are taking a little bit of a break from horror movies, and we are watching 1985, very campy, very cheesy, martial arts action movie, American Ninja. This movie was a staple of my childhood, in all honesty. There is 5 sequels to this movie because I believe they went all the way to American Ninja 6, and I believe at least until part 4, Michael Dudikoff plays Joe Armstrong in all of them. I believe it's 5 and 6 that he does not play Joe Armstrong.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of sequels to this movie. But it's we'll discuss the movie here in the second half. You know, there's a lot to discuss about it. It is actually a really big cult favorite of a lot of people, and I'm looking forward to talking about it. I'm sure Friday is looking forward to talking about it.
Oh yeah.
And sorry, I'm a little distracted. Don't mean to be distracted. And I'm sure everybody's ready to listen to us discuss it. Because, like I've said, it's a movie that I grew up with and I always enjoyed. I'm not gonna lie, though, I like part 2 better.
I can't remember which one I like most, to be honest.
Yeah, I always liked part 2 better. But as a kid, there was a fight scene in the second one that would just have me and my sister cracking up while we were watching it. So I think that's why I like the second one better. But I still like the original. And it's a spoiler alert. I'm a fan of the movie, needless to say.
Me too.
And it's weird because, like I said before, this month, like every movie I chose this month, I didn't realize it at the time. I've seen every one of these movies. Unlucky Charms, which is coming up next week for our St. Patrick's Day special. I've seen, but I've only seen it once, so I don't remember a lot about Unlucky Charms. And then at the end of the month, Bikini Spring Break, I watched it a couple of times when I worked at Blockbuster. Once for free for my the movies I'm allowed to watch beforehand, and then after that I rented it a time or two. Even of course next month in April we have the first week of April, which is the 4th, I believe is this show. Yep, April 4th. The 1 year anniversary of the Bloody Binge Movie Podcast. I chose Nothing But Trouble. Have you seen that one, Jen?
I can't remember until I watch it.
And this is one of those movies that if you've seen it, you know you've seen it. When you watch it, of course. It is very hard to forget this movie. It does star... It was written and directed... It was actually written and directed by Dan Aykroyd. And he actually does star in it as the judge. But it also stars Chevy Chase, John Candy, Demi Moore, and just a whole host of 80s favorites. But, and then like I said, that's a movie I've seen before. I think we're not gonna get to a movie that I haven't seen before until the middle of April, which would be the 11th in Cocaine Cougar.
Oh.
I know it's weird. I didn't.
I know for a fact I have not seen that.
Yeah, it's a relatively new one. It's one of those. I don't know if you noticed or not, but there was a ton of movies that came out after the success of Cocaine Bear. Which
it's
I hope
like
you've
the
seen.
Shark thing.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things too. I don't know if you remember back in the early 2000s and mid 2000s, early 2010s. The movie company Asylum would do that, where like this big movie would come out, like Transformers. Then they would turn around and make a very low budget version of it called Transmorphers.
Mm-hmm.
And they would do that like repeatedly. And to the point where it made me laugh every time I saw one come out. But this is exactly what this is. You know, this is just people taking advantage because Cocaine Bear was such a great movie and so fun. And it was like a wild success that people are like, oh, well, we could just take an animal and give it cocaine. We could make a whole new movie about it too. Oh, so yeah. There's like Cocaine Cougar. I think I've seen some Cocaine Raccoons. And just a bunch like I think I saw a messed out like mountain lion or something out there. Like, there's a lot of these kind of movies, and I'm looking forward to Cocaine Cougar. It looks craptastic. After that is actually WrestleMania weekend. We might have to do the show on Thursday that week because the Haunt is opening that weekend. Hell's Dungeon will be open on April 18th and 19th for an Easter haunt. Well, the 18th is an Easter haunt. I believe if I know them, April 19th will be 420. So Hell's Dungeon is opening next month. Come check us out. But that week, WrestleMania weekend, I chose a wrestling movie, No Holds Barred.
Have you seen that?
Have you seen that one, Jen?
No.
It is Hulk Hogan's first starring role.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's again a movie I've seen so many times. I actually have a good story about how, because when they released the movie on like pay-per-view and DVD and VHS and that at the time, because you're talking like this is like 1988, 1989, right after WrestleMania 6. They had a match, and it was like the day after Christmas. I want to say the 26th of December, or a couple of days after Christmas, maybe even New Year's, where you could get, it was No Holds Barred, the match in the movie, where you could buy the movie, you know, you pay for it. I got it for Christmas. My mom got it for me as a Christmas gift. You watch the movie, No Holds Barred, and then after that, you got to watch, I believe it was like Hulk Hogan and Brutus the Barber Beefcake against Randy Savage and Zeus inside of a steel cage.
Epic.
Yes, as an 11-year-old, yes, that was epic. It was very epic. And then the week after that, I believe we're doing 420. We're gonna do our 420. Yeah, we're gonna do our 420 episode 4 or 5 days late, as we're gonna watch Evil Bong. I think you guys watched that on the other show, right? On Tomb.
No, not yet.
Really? Wow, I thought you guys watched it. So we get to watch Evil Bong. This is 2 full moon movies in a row in consecutive months. Full Moon put out Unlucky Charms, and Full Moon also put out Evil Bong. And then one of the Thursdays in April, we are going to do an episode of Shivers. There was so much going on in April that I figure I'd probably just do an episode of Shivers on a Thursday.
Yeah, sounds like a good plan.
Because we do need to catch up with the cryptids, and we're going to do Cryptids of Mississippi. Because that is the state that won the wheel last time.
We could start randomly just doing the month's Shivers on the Thursday.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to happen. I'm going to have to look. I'm not going to lie. I just got a job yesterday. I go to orientation. I go to orientation tomorrow. But the only downside... Thank you. It's been 8 months. It's been 8 months unemployed. Thank you. But it's going to be a lot of night shifts, so I'm going to see. I might have to change up the schedule a little bit between Fridays and Thursdays, because it is at a retail store. So I will have to probably work Fridays. We'll see what happens, though. If worse comes to worse, as Jen suggested before, we can record episodes and put them out.
Yeah. We can record them or change days, or there is a way to work around that. I can help.
And I appreciate that. It's like I said, it's one of those. It's a job that's going to be hopefully temporary till I can do something better. Because the other thing I'm getting ready to try to do, and I'm having a hard time making decisions on it, is I'm planning to go back to school.
Ooh.
And get a degree, hopefully in video production or filmmaking itself. I want to learn how to do it, at least, I had thought about between that and history, because I'm like, again, I've said it before, I'm a big history buff. Like, I'm one of those nerds, I guess you could say, that I got because I don't know I don't know how many people watched that video I put up the other day from Bellbrook, Ohio, that cemetery that I found. I got so excited that I found that cemetery, because I thought it was the coolest thing. And I'm like, this is a pioneer cemetery. And I was talking to my wife at the time on the phone, and she's like, I don't know. She's like, what is that? I said, well, if you go to, because she's been like to Deadwood and places like that before. I have not. But if you go to Deadwood, they have Boot Hill, where all the people, the cowboys, the settlers, and that are buried, that were that lived back then. That's where they got buried, was on Boot Hill. Wild Bill Hickok is buried there. So this is a pioneer cemetery that was founded in the early 1800s. I misspoke in the video where I said Isaac Follis was the first person buried there. That is not true. Andrew Webb, I believe was his name, would have been the first one buried in the early 1800s. His wife and then 3 children are buried there. The reason Isaac was interesting is because he's actually buried he was married twice, and he's buried between both wives. Like each wife is buried on either side of him.
That is cool.
There are 15 people total buried in there, but there's only probably 6 or 7 tombstones, because over the years, you gotta remember, this thing's been there for like 200 years. If you watch the video, you saw the state of a lot of the tombstones and the grave and that, like, there's a lot of trash up there. I wouldn't be surprised if like teenagers went up there, because it's kind of an isolated spot, as long as the neighbors don't see you walking through their yard to get up to the graveyard, because it is. Go ahead.
Teenager thing.
They did teenager. They've done teenager things up there. Yes. But between vandals kind of don't, that's not a modern day problem. There's been graveyard vandals throughout history, grave robbers and things like that. But like Isaac's tombstone itself is in like 3 pieces. But
Yes.
between that, there's trash everywhere. The city takes care of it, for obvious reasons. But it just blew my mind too, because when I found it, I'm like, why is it in the middle of a neighborhood, like a rich neighborhood on top of that? Like not just a random neighborhood. It's like this is a very modern built neighborhood.
I don't know, but I'm so happy you found it, and I loved watching
Yes.
the video and sharing the pictures. And I hope you do more.
If I could find stuff like that, I want to do more. I've always wanted to do. I don't know if you've ever watched on YouTube, like Adam the Woo or Jacob the Carpetbagger.
Yes.
I've been wanting to do stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff I'd like to do. I mean, I don't have the funds like they do to go traveling. I also don't have the flexibility to do that much traveling. But
Understandable.
I would love to do stuff like that. There's a lot of history around Dayton, especially if I still live in Virginia. There's so much out there because my part of Virginia that I lived in was where the settlers first appeared. First set foot on land. They stayed. We actually have a state park, First Landing State Park in Virginia Beach, where you can go stand where on the location that the Pilgrims or the settlers first came onto land.
That is cool.
Before they went up the bay, then went up the James River and settled at Jamestown. We have Yorktown, we have Custer's Cave, which is reportedly not Custer's Cave, Cornwallis's cave. Lord Cornwallis, of course, being the general of the British Army.
Yes.
Where he was, Yorktown, of course, is where the war ended, the American Revolution ended, where Cornwallis surrendered to Washington. And there's a cave that they called Cornwallis's Cave, which is where he was holed up during the war, during the fighting. And it is said to this day to be haunted. You have Fort Monroe there, which I have actually done investigations in, that was built in the 1600s to defend against pirates.
Very
and
cool.
You can go to the Casemate Museum. You can look; they still have the cannons like facing out of the fort, and you could look exactly where they would have, been firing at.
That is I was actually reading a book about that yesterday.
About the Casemate in Newport News, Virginia. Yeah, it's amazing. It's a free museum to go to. You can go because Barack Obama made it a state park or a federal park, or National Historic Site is what he did. Because, like I said, Fort Monroe has been around since, I want to say, probably the 15 or 1600s. It was one of the first forts built on American soil. Abraham Lincoln, stood there to watch the Battle of the Monitor and the Merrimack. The Battle of the Ironclads. Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy, this was where his jail cell was. And you can walk into his jail cell. And one of the things they did as like a giant middle finger to this guy is they went and found the largest American flag they could find. And they hung that son of a bitch right in his cell. So the first thing he saw when he woke up is that American flag, and then the last thing he saw when he went to bed at night was the American flag. Fort Monroe never fell to the Confederacy, even though it was in Virginia, very far south into Virginia. It never fell to the Confederacy. And there's so many stories there. Like Edgar Allan Poe, his final public reading before he passed away was in a gazebo right outside the hotel.
Ooh.
Like, there's so much interesting stuff about Fort Monroe that, again, and this is why I tell people, if you're going to go somewhere that has a lot of history behind it, go on the ghost tour. you will find, because you go to the regular tours, you're going to find this stuff, you know, especially like if you go to Gettysburg. You go on the historical tours in Gettysburg, you're going to find out the stuff, you know, the actual historical stuff and things like, you know, historical stories and that, especially if it's a park ranger giving the tour, because the park rangers will not talk. You can ask them all you want. They might have stories about what they've seen about ghosts and stuff like that, but even in Gettysburg, the park rangers are told, no, official stories only. We don't talk about paranormal or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you go, and trust me, if you go to Gettysburg, there's plenty of ghost tours to go on.
Oh yeah, just like over in Chattanooga, there's plenty of ghost stories about the battlefield there. I definitely expect that.
Yeah, I need to go to Chattanooga. We drove through Chattanooga a couple of times driving to Florida, but I've never actually stayed and hung out in Chattanooga outside of there's a diner right off of the interstate that was some of the best food I've ever had.
Whereas I've spent years, days, that my family lives there.
And seeing that's me in Virginia is, you know, that's where I'm from, you know. So I could tell you all kinds of stories about Virginia and things like that. But when you go, like, you'll learn about Jenny Wade if you go on the historical tours.
Mm-hmm.
Jenny Wade in Gettysburg is the only civilian casualty of the Civil War. And it's a tragic story because she actually ran away. Jenny and her mom actually ran away, and I think it was a brother and sister, ran from their home to her sister's home in downtown Gettysburg to get away from the fighting.
Yes.
And then she ended up getting killed because there was a Confederate sharpshooter saw a Union soldier creeping around her house and took the shot. Missed. It went through like 2 doors and hit Jenny and killed her instantly.
Yeah, and that whole entire story was saddening. And the walkthrough of the house, that was wow.
Mm-hmm. But then you get, you know, you go on the ghost tours, you're going to get a little more into it. Like the best example in Gettysburg is there's this museum. It's the Museum I think it's Museum of Gettysburg or something like that. You'll get the historical tour in that. But if you go on the night tour, you actually learn this was an orphanage.
Uh-huh.
This place used to be an orphanage, and the lady who ran the orphanage was evil. Like, she beat the kids. She would lock them in. She's one of the kind of people who would lock the kids in the room and then brick up the walls.
Yeah. And you can see the chains on the walls.
Yes.
People say they can hear the little hands patting their legs or pulling their shirt.
Yes. And that's why I say always take the ghost tour. Anywhere you go, take the ghost tour, because you'll find more about the city. You'll find out more about the history of the area taking the ghost tour. Because that's another thing in Virginia Beach that people don't realize is we have a lot of history, but we do have a little dark history too, because right near the end of the Salem witch trials, like the whole witch fever, I guess is what they call it.
Uh-huh.
We had our own witch. Her name was Grace Sherwood, and we called her the Pungo Witch. Uh-huh. Now, if you go to school in Virginia Beach, not only will you go to Jamestown on a field trip, but when I was in the first grade, they took us around to the Ferry Plantation House and like Lynnhaven River and a couple other places that all revolved around Grace Sherwood. She wasn't your typical feminine, woman back in the early 1700s. I believe it was the 1600s.
Uh-huh.
Where her husband died, left her all this land, and she worked the land. Her and her kids worked the land. She didn't wear dresses. She wore slacks.
Uh-huh.
Which, again, in 1600s, if you dressed the slightest bit different than everybody else, first thing they do is, that bitch is a witch. That's just how they were. Well, her neighbors really wanted her land.
Of course.
And she wouldn't sell it, so they started the whole,
witch, she's
must
a
be a
witch.
She's wearing pants. She has to be a witch. So they start doing the stuff and everything. They have, they have your inspector, they have the women inspector for the quote unquote, the witch mark or the devil's bite or something.
Yeah.
The mark of the beast. Where it could be a mole, and they would sit there and go, that's not normal. Guess you're a witch. It's almost as funny as that scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail where they're accusing the lady of being a witch, so they put her on the scales with a duck.
She turned me into a newt. I
Yes.
got better. Dude, they use that as common sense classes. Basically, critical thinking. They use it in critical thinking courses in college.
I'm just a huge fan of Monty Python in general. And again, something funny about me as well. Everybody who loves Monty Python will always say that The Holy Grail is their favorite movie. I love The Holy Grail. It is not my favorite. I like Life of Brian better.
Me too. I thought I was the only one.
I love Life of Brian just because, again, I'm not atheist. I'm not like a non-believer in God, but I am completely against organized religion.
Yes.
Because to me that's like the biggest fallacy out there is just the organized religion and all the bullshit that if you don't believe us, you're going to hell.
Exactly.
But I digress. So they do the ducking test on her. The ducking test, of course, is when you throw somebody I guess you weigh them down, you throw them in the water. If they escape, they're supposed to swim back to the boat like a fucking idiot. Swim back to the boat and be, so that the people can take you back and burn you at the stake because you're a witch. But if you drown, that means God wanted it was your time anyway, and God's coming to take you. Just a complete load of hypocrisy.
Yeah, they're good at that.
Yes. So they duck her, and there's no record. Like, there's no records after this of what happened to the land, her kids, anything. Like, there's no historical record at all.
That's because they didn't want us to know what they did.
Yeah. Well, because like I said, this is after the Salem witch trials. This is when it was starting to be frowned upon to do the witch hunts and things like that. So, but we have like Witch Duck Road now. We have the Lynnhaven River, which is where she was ducked. And just a lot of stuff dedicated. There's even a statue outside of one of our hospitals dedicated to Grace Sherwood. But now that we've had History Hour, let's go ahead and start diving into it. We have a few stories. We have a few news stories this week. There is nothing really coming out with haunt news right now because a lot of it is, stuff coming out of Trans World, and it's more about like the winners, like the best in show, best vendors, and things like that. I don't want to cover that kind of stuff. Especially because I believe we're having a Cheeners tomorrow night. Am I right?
Yes. If he was not able to do it today, we were going to have it tomorrow because he didn't know if he wanted to join in. But of course, we all decided Steven's welcome regardless.
Yeah. If I'm back tomorrow in time, I might go ahead and join because this is something I talked to him yesterday about Haunt Expo and Fear. Or HauntCon and Fear Expo. For those who don't know, we covered it a couple months ago. Pyle actually came on the show. We talked about it for a little bit. They announced probably about 3 or 4 months ago now that they weren't going to do HauntCon or Fear Expo this year because the gentlemen who own it, they were having some issues and they didn't want to go into detail or anything like that. Well, last Saturday at 9:30 in the morning, right before Trans World opens, they make a post announcing that they're going to sell off HauntCon and Fear Expo. The guy who owns it, basically, it does turn out that, yes, one of the gentlemen who own it is sick, and the other guy can't run it by himself. So they're willing to either sell it off to a bigger haunt or somebody who can, basically afford it and afford to run it, or he's even offering to sell it to a group of people and everybody buys shares into the con. And he's also offered that if somebody does buy it, that he's offering to basically stay on and help manage it, help run it, and things like that. It's way too overwhelming for one person to do.
Very much so.
Yeah, so I talked to Pyle about that yesterday, and he had said he was going to try to come on today if he could get off work in time, but unfortunately it looks like he was not able to. So
no,
we'll leave Transworld for tomorrow and Chainers. And if I can get done with this orientation and whatever they want me to do at my new job tomorrow night, I will try to get on and join you guys. But our first story, there's a little bit of big news this week coming out. If you're looking, I don't know how many people are still looking forward to Scream 7. But David Arquette is returning for Scream 7, even though I thought he died in Scream 5. I haven't seen Scream 6 yet, so don't shoot me. So now you have Neve Campbell coming back as Sydney. You have Courtney Cox coming back as the reporter. And David Duchovny coming back as Dewey. Plus, Matthew Lillard is returning as Stu. So someone again that
he died.
Yeah, someone that again I thought he died. No, he could be in a flashback or something like that. But Matthew Lillard is returning for Scream 7. But the big news this week was that David Arquette. I keep wanting to say David Duchovny for some reason. David Arquette is returning for Scream. There is a bunch of stuff. Can you hear me still?
Yes.
Okay, I'm making sure because my screen's frozen. It'll fix itself here in a second. But there's also some news coming out today that there's basically working on a remake of the Resident Evil movies. Stay on page. There we go. They're doing a remake of the Resident Evil movies, and they have a date for it for next year, for 2026. And this is a lot of the problem I'm having finding news this week. Is everything is? I guess it's got to be a very quiet week on the news front for horror movies, because the only thing I'm finding on Bloody Disgusting and Fangoria really are trailers for movies, which we can't show, and lists. And everybody knows when a news site can't come up with stories, the first thing they don't have anything to report, the first thing they do is they start writing lists.
Yes.
So yeah, that's the other issue I'm running into. But there are a couple of news stories. Again, there we go. This computer's pissed me off a little bit. So Joe, you know who Joe Bob Briggs is, right? Friday.
Yes.
So his show comes back tonight. The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs returns tonight to its original format of the double feature. So apparently, because I don't know if you watched it last year, I didn't get a chance to watch any of the episodes last year, but if you watched the show last year, they changed format to a weekly or a bi-weekly format every other week, and it would only be one movie. People didn't like it. Apparently, Joe Bob didn't like that format. Apparently, he liked his original double feature. Very long. Stay up all half the night watching horror movies. Format. So they are changing it again this year, back to the double feature format, but the episodes will only come out once a month. So like tonight, they'll come out on the first Friday of every month. Tonight, basically they had a lot of East Coast people complaining about the double features and that they had to work the next day. Who works on them? So people were complaining they have to work the next morning or the next day, and they couldn't watch the double feature. Guys, it's on a Friday. I know retail, and there's some people that work on Saturdays, but how many people work on Saturdays? That we're going to change the entire. Go ahead.
DVR it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They didn't want to wait. And then we got complaints in the other, so that's why I went to the single features. And then we got complaints in the other direction. They said, we missed the double features. It seemed like such a more full experience when we had the double features. And from what I saw of people watching it last year, yeah, it really felt different that it was only one movie versus the double feature thing.
You can tell none of these people ever worked healthcare.
Yes.
And had to randomly be awake at 7 a.m. one day and be awake at 2 p.m. the next day.
Exactly. And that's what I would do, because when I first started watching Joe Bob, I was still working for Frito-Lay and going to work at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I go to work at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Friday. You think I'm really staying up till 3 o'clock, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning or Friday night? No.
VCR tapes when I was a kid. That's how we did it.
You don't even need that. It's on the website. You can start it over. Or you can start where you left off.
Thing is, my brain's still analog.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is it's just this new generation of we want it now. We don't want to wait. We want it now. One of the best things growing up is waiting. Was the waiting, because you could anticipate. You could get yourself worked up and ready to. You want this to come. You want this to come. Now, but we gotta wait. What was it when we were growing up? We had who killed JR, who shot Mr. Burns, and you had to wait like 4 or 5 months for that, and you're going crazy the entire time. Going, was it Barney? Was it Moe? Was it Homer? Did Homer shoot Mr. Burns? Was it Mr. Was it Flanders? Was it Mr. Smithers? Then it ended up being the fucking baby.
That's what I was thinking. It was Maggie. I'm like, yeah. Didn't Maggie shoot Mr. Burns?
Yeah, it turned out to be Maggie, and it was an accident. That's like one of the greatest moments in South Park history is they ended the first season with the cliffhanger of who's Cartman's dad.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Mr. Mackey, the 1985 Denver Broncos, like the whole fucking team. And of course, we come to season 2. The very first episode is on April 1st. So naturally being on Comedy Central and naturally being the South Park guys, they don't give you the episode telling us who America. You'll have to wait one more week to find out who Cartman's dad is, because now we're going to give you an episode of Terrence and Phillip, Asses of Fire, and then it just said April Fools. The amount of phone calls they said Comedy Central and the South Park studios got was ridiculous. And to me, that was funny. It's a troll. Then, of course, the next week we tune in just to find out that Eric's mom is technically Eric's dad, because she's a hermaphrodite. And then at the very end, he goes, "Well, wait a minute. If my mom is my dad, then who's my mom? Who is Eric Cartman's mom? Is it Mrs. Broflovsky?" And he's just like, you know what? Fuck it. which still makes me laugh to this day, almost 30 years later.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the movies they're doing tonight is the 100th birthday of a movie, essentially a 100th anniversary of a movie. And do you have any guesses at all what it might be, Friday?
Not a clue.
Think original Universal Monsters. Think a movie that came out in 1925.
Dracula?
Unfortunately, no. This is not one of the more well-known. Like it's well-known, but it's not one of the more popular Universal Monsters. But we're looking at. They believe that the 100th anniversary is going to be the Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, okay.
Which does turn 100 years old this year. It came out in 1925.
I didn't realize that.
And then the second film is the weirdest remake of the first film years later by one of our favorite weirdo directors. I'm really happy that we're launching the season with this particular double feature because there's so much to talk about. Spencer Turnus, frontman of the horror-inspired metalcore band Ice Nine Kills, I am a big fan of Ice Nine Kills, will undergo a special effects transformation on the episode. I am a big fan of Ice Nine Kills. I like Spencer Turnus. I love his creativity, especially because I don't know if you've ever watched any of Ice Nine Kills music videos, Jen.
No.
They basically a lot of his songs are based on old movies. He has one song called A Grave Mistake, or they have one song called A Grave Mistake that is themed on The Crow. And if you watch the video, there's a whole story behind it.
Ooh.
His latest one and the most popular one, they're making TikToks about it left and right, is a work of art by, dedicated to Terrifier 3. They even have David Howard Thornton in the video as Art the Clown. And it's awesome because it is about as violent, gory, and disgusting as the movies are. There's one on Chucky, that's one of my favorite songs. There's one is Assault and Batteries. And they do a lot of these videos, and he's involved a lot in it. His creativity is involved a lot in the creation of the videos. And he's actually going to be. Go ahead.
I was trying to say that is so cool.
Oh yeah, no, it really is. I love their videos. Like the work of art video, the song's only about 3 or 4 minutes long. The video's 15 minutes long. Speaking of which, he will be at Horror Hound next week or in 2 weeks. I'm excited. They finally did just announce, because pretty much almost the entire cast of characters is going to be there from Terrifier 3. They just announced 2 more people this week. They just announced Shannon Elizabeth today is going to appear there. Shannon Elizabeth, of course, from Jack Frost, the horror movie Jack Frost. Scary Movie, she plays Nadia in American Pie. And of course, they announced earlier this week, and I'm excited, Henry Winkler.
That is awesome.
My mom would have bought a ticket. She did not like horror movies, but my mother would have bought a ticket to see this because she was in love with Fonzie on Happy Days. She would have bought a ticket immediately to go meet Henry Winkler. Of course, I remember him from Waterboy.
Yes.
Coach Klein. He's so good. But
I remember him from both.
I remember from that, from the principal in Scream. Because a lot of people were asking, why is he coming to a horror movie convention? He's not a horror movie actor. I was like, he's in Scream. So, yes.
They don't know him, so they don't look.
No. It's people talking before they research or anything like that. It's always shit like that out there. But our last new piece of horror movie news, I got a couple of stupid things we can share too. So last year, Synapse Films and Red Shirt Home Video teamed up to bring us a deluxe edition of Blu-ray and 4K UHD release of the 1986 rock and roll horror film, and again, love this movie, Trick or Treat. Not the Sam one, Trick or Treat as the one with Ozzy Osbourne and Gene Simmons.
And we have done an episode on that.
Yes, that is a good movie. Now they're working on several follow-up projects, including a 4K UHD and a Blu-ray release of Fright Night Part 2. And a deluxe edition 4K UHD and Blu-ray release of Hello Mary Lou Prom Night 2. Red Shirt's Michael Felsher announced that Prom Night 2, the Prom Night 2 project on social media, where he also revealed that the Blu-ray releases of Prom Night 3, The Last Kiss, and Prom Night 4, Deliver Us from Evil, are in the works. However, we do not know if they're going to get the Ultra HD treatment like Hello Mary Lou Prom Night 2 is, and Fright Night 2. So yeah, that's exciting. That's exciting if you're, depending on if you're a big horror movie fan or not. That's pretty exciting. Depending on if you collect physical media. I collect physical media, but I ain't been able to buy anything in a while because I got nowhere to put anything. Basically the big story that's been repeatedly put out today is Barbarian director Zach Cregger's Resident Evil movie gets a 2026 release date. Trying to check this website. Yeah, there's really nothing but lists and trailers. So that'll do it for horror movie news. We still got a few minutes before we need to take our break. How about we do a couple of stupid stories?
Sounds like a plan for me.
So this story came out last August, but it's so... at least the headline, I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but the headline is so stupid that we have to talk about it. So should I read the story or should I just go ahead and read the headline first?
Read the headline.
Mom, grandma blame ghosts after toddler tests positive for fentanyl. Two women in Newton, North Carolina, are facing criminal charges after being accused of causing severe injuries to two toddlers in their care. The defense is citing paranormal activity as the cause, according to a local ABC affiliate television station, WSOC. Emily Marie Edwards, who was 25, and her mother, Sherry Jean Edwards, at 54, were arrested on August 16th following a grand jury indictment on 2 counts each of felony child abuse causing serious bodily injury, Law and Crime reports. The charges are based on allegations dating back to December of 2023. The court documents reviewed by WSOC said that a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old suffered multiple injuries, including burns, bite marks, and broken bones. And additionally, both children tested positive for fentanyl. When questioned by the Newton Police Department, the Edwards women reportedly said that the injuries were the result of evil spirits within their apartment in Newton, about 40 miles from Charlotte. According to Newton Police Chief Vital Sipe, Vidal site? That's an awesome name. The women mentioned that they had been using a Ouija board, which is used to attempt to communicate with spirits, and suggested that the injuries were inflicted by these spirits during nightmares the children experienced. You know, Jen, I think a Ouija board and fentanyl don't go together.
No. And to be honest, this is one of those WTF stories that are getting near the top of the list of the biggest WTF stories.
Oh, you should hear some of the stories coming out of Ohio lately.
Oh, I haven't looked lately because...
Oh, we're becoming Florida.
Interesting.
We're becoming Florida, man, really quickly up here. But we also do have a huge opiate problem here, especially in the Dayton area. There's a really big opiate problem. And our government really doesn't, or our people really don't like to do anything about it.
Yeah, they're shutting down places across the country that are supposed to help with those things.
So the basic response was nightmares, Sipe explained to WSOC TV. They heard the kids yelling and went over to find injuries on them. They claimed that spirits in the house were responsible for these injuries. You just said nightmares were the cause of these injuries. The indictment accuses the women of acting with a reckless disregard for life and failing to report the extensive injuries observed on the toddlers. The court documents detail the children's injuries and suggest that the abuse was a result of actions taken by the mother and grandmother. Sipe also said that there was a possibility of a third adult involved who passed away earlier this year. Neighbors in the area have expressed skepticism about the Edwards account of events. I'm pretty sure it's not just the neighbors. One neighbor who also spoke to the TV channel dismissed the notion of paranormal activity, saying, "I think that's crazy." Really? You think? At the time of the story, both women were being held at the Catawba County Jail with bonds set at $25,000 each.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with words on this one.
I think we all are at this point. And the thing about it is, too, is it's one of those things where it's like, it doesn't shock me. It more shocks me that people were dumb enough to believe them? Like, what freaking lawyer?
I've seen haunts where you do literally get burned by the ghost.
Yeah.
This is a whole different level of they're finding drugs in the kid's system and burns and all of that stuff. That was not ghosts, and that was not a nightmare.
They could have been nightmares, but the nightmares could have been fueled by the fentanyl.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people do stupid stuff when they're high or when they're drunk. I know I say stupid shit when I'm drunk. There's been times where I woke up the next morning, my girlfriend the girlfriend's pissed at me because I said something the night before, and I'm like, honestly, honey, I don't even think I remember. I don't remember saying that. I don't get that. But I will say though, I don't get that bad off anymore.
That's good, but wow.
Yeah. I've not been a lifelong drinker. I've only really started drinking since I turned 40.
Uh-huh.
So I've been experimenting and stuff like that, you know. During the pandemic, what else were we supposed to do? We couldn't leave our house. So I went to the liquor store, bought some liquor, and we started mixing our own drinks and experimenting with mixing drinks and that.
Yeah.
I will honestly say I can hint. Go ahead.
I was saying wow because on Josh's worst days at work, when he was working at the prison, he would get combative while he was sleeping.
Yeah.
So I knew it was a bad day at work when that sort of thing happened. So sometimes you say things in your sleep and sometimes you do things in your sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I toss and turn a lot when I've had too much. The last time I actually drank to where I was blackout drunk was the night my mother died. Ever since, I think I've only gotten bad enough to throw up once. And even then, that was not done intentionally. I just basically underestimated how strong the alcohol I was drinking at the time was. So our final story today comes from, I believe this is CBS Chicago on the Coast to Coast AM network. A Cheeto resembling the wildly popular Pokemon character Charizard fetched a staggering $87,840 at an auction held over the weekend. According to Golden Auctions, which facilitated the sale on Sunday, the weirdly shaped snack food of the Flaming Hot variety, it is a Flaming Hot Cheeto, I'm looking at it right now, was initially discovered and preserved sometime between 2018 and 2022 by a collectibles store in Georgia. After being showcased online last year, the oddity dubbed Cheetozard went viral in the Pokemon community, in which fans are known to drop sizable sums of money to acquire hard-to-find cards. And right now, there's a whole new deck that came out recently, and people are fighting over them. I was never a Pokemon card collector. But as such, at an auction of the Cheeto over the weekend, it was no surprise that a bidding war broke out among collectors hoping to get their hands on the one-of-a-kind snack food abnormality. When the proverbial orange dust finally settled, following a whopping 60 bids, the final price of the Cheeto had gone from $250 to a jaw-dropping $72,000. With the auction house's premium attached, the final price attached to the peculiar piece was $87,840, which will be forked over by a yet-to-be-identified buyer who one imagines is an enormous Pokemon fan. It's a YouTube video, not a picture.
You can always put it in the group.
I don't know how to do that. I'm just gonna. What group are we talking about?
If there's like videos you want on YouTube to share that go along with the stories, you can copy the link and put it in the group on Facebook.
Okay.
That's what I've been doing.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen so everybody can see this Cheeto real quick.
Alrighty.
There it is. I paused the YouTube video so everybody can see it.
But it's not sharing.
Ah, dang it. Share screen. Oh, that's why. Allow. And boom. What in the... that's what that was. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it looks exactly like Charizard. I love how they made its own little Pokemon card and gave it HP and everything.
That's epic.
Yes. $87,840 for that Cheeto. Stop screen. There we go. Where did we go?
Hold on. I'll put us back up in this.
Okay.
There we go.
All right.
It wasn't showing, so I was clicking things to see if something went wrong.
No, it was on my end. It was human error. But I think that's going to do it for our news stories this week. As, again, there's not much. I'm not going to sit here and read off lists of what other people think are like the worst horror movies of 2023 or whatever, But it's also, go ahead.
We just need to make our own and put it up.
We do it. That takes a lot of time. Because I'm the kind of person that sits there and go, do I really want to put this there? Like, the only thing I am 100% certain is that Amityville Thanksgiving is and might always be the worst possible movie we've ever watched. Possibly the worst movie I've ever watched on this show.
Okay.
Because that movie was god-awful. Like, even so far this year, I don't think anything comes relatively close to how bad Amityville Thanksgiving was. But with that, our news segment is over. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we are going to deep dive. We are going straight back to the 80s. We have some cheesy, really campy and cheesy martial arts action coming your way from 1985. I could be wrong on the year too, but I think, nope, it's 1985. As we watch American Ninja. See you in a few minutes.
Greetings and shabibans. We are the Retro Reductibus Cephala Podcast, a long-form bi-weekly show that celebrates all the things that made growing up awesome.
Well, that sounds good, but I don't know what all those words mean.
I think what Parasite Steve's trying to say is that on Retro Reductibus, we explore a range of retro goodness, from toys, video games, and movies, to cartoons, and even snacks and school lunches.
Oh. And we do it all with a positive spin, a slew of killer guests, and some very adult language.
And you know what else is cool?
No.
This crazy show is part of the Door King Podcast Network with new episodes every Tentacle Tuesday.
What's that?
And if waiting 2 weeks for a new episode gives you a sad, know that we drop bonus episodes all the time, like the off-format Crow's Nest and an interview series we call The Brig.
You can listen to Retro Reductibus on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any app that's cool enough to carry the only show that celebrates all the things that make growing up awesome.
And just like that, we're back. Welcome, everybody, back to the Bloody Binge Movie Podcast. I am your host, Sewer Dweller, and I'm joined by Friday, who may not be back yet from the break, so we'll go ahead and move on. Sorry, I'm dropping things over here. But today, we are watching 1985 martial arts movie, American Ninja. Welcome back, Friday.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Oh, it happens. I almost didn't make it back myself. me 1 second. I'm taking a habit real quick.
Sounds like a good plan. This was a good movie.
It is definitely a good movie. It's a fun movie at the minimum. Definitely, like I said before, a movie that I watched quite a bit growing up. I still remember renting it from the movie store and watching it for the first time, and just having a blast watching it. Like I said before, though, I do like the second one better because there's a fight scene in it that just had me and my sister. I want to say my brother. I don't think my brother would have been old enough at the time, though. But we would laugh our asses off at it, and yeah. So I figured, I had to do this. I had to do this. I wanted to do a martial arts movie this month, and I saw this, and I was like, we have to do it. So as I said, it came out in 1985. It is written or is directed by Sam Furstenberg. His credits, he's basically known again for a lot of martial arts, a lot of low budget movies like Blood Warriors, Cyborg Cop 2. The last movie he put out in 2003 was The Interplanetary Surplus Mail and Amazon Women of Outer Space. Let's go back to the beginning of his. So we have Revenge of the Ninja, Ninja 3, Domination, Break-In 2, Electric Boogaloo, American Ninja, Avenging Force, American Ninja 2, Delta Force 3, which I think all the Delta Forces actually did have Chuck Norris. So maybe not this one. Take it back. Delta Force 3 did not have Chuck Norris. Tropical Heat, Cyborg Cop 2, and just basically a lot of low budget action. The movie was written by 3 people. Paul Demilish or Mielsch. I can't really say this guy's name. Again, wrote a bunch of ninja movies. Actually, no, I take it back. He only wrote this one, but he played himself in 2 other movies. I would say, one's The Making of an American Ninja. Yeah, they're both making of American Ninja. So this is the only writing credit that Mr. Mielsch has. Avi Kleinberger did okay. Writing wise, they have 5 credits. 4 of them are American Ninja movies. And the 5th one being POW The Escape, starring David Carradine. So, big name. It's a pretty big name. And finally, Gideon Amir is another one of the writers. Gideon Amir. Again, a lot of these guys are more. He's got the same writing credits as Avi Kleinberger. But let's get to the stars of the movie. We start off with Joe Armstrong, played by Michael Dudikoff. This guy was in a lot of stuff that you didn't realize. Jen, do you recognize him from anything else?
To be honest, no. I can't. The name. I need to bring it up to see.
Yeah. Well, he started his career off small. He did an episode of Dallas, an episode of Happy Days. He was in horror movie wise. He was in Bloody Birthday. Moving up, Tron. He was a member of. This is the acting, right? I'm gonna make sure I got acting down and not something else. Yeah, he was a member of Tron. He was in the original Tron as a bit part, really, for the looks of it. Played Huckleberry Finn in 1983 and Sawyer and Finn. On one episode of Gimme a Break, he was in Bachelor Party with Tom Cruise. He played Ryko. He was in the North and South Book 2, Love and War, Lieutenant Rudy Bodford. And then, of course, he was in American Ninjas 2 and 4. I guess he was not in Part 3. Air America, Rescue Me, Chain of Command, Cobra, Cyberjack, Bounty Hunters, Hardball, Soldier Boys, like a bunch of low-budget stuff. But he was in Ringmaster, the Jerry Springer movie back in 1998. Do you remember that movie at all?
I didn't watch it.
Yes, it actually has a story to it. He played Connie's husband in the movie. Basically, they were Jamie Presley and Molly Hagan were a mother and daughter, and they lied to. If I remember the story right, they lied to get on Jerry Springer, and they were lying and saying that Jamie Presley's character slept with Michael Dudikoff, who was dating the mom at the time. Like it was very confusing. But the last thing he's been in was actually in 2022. He was in Trailblazers, Navy SEALs versus Zombies in 2015. Zombie Breakdown, like a lot of low budget horror. But now we get to one of my favorite actors in the movie, Lieutenant Jackson, played by Steve James. Unfortunately, Steve James would pass away 8 years after this movie was made in 1993. But Steve James is a legend in blaxploitation films from the 60s and 70s. And some martial arts movies like Enter the Game of Death. He was actually one of the baseball Fury in one of my favorite movies, and this is legitimately in my top 10 movies, The Warriors. You've seen The Warriors, right, Jen?
Yes.
Yeah, he plays one of the baseball guys.
Okay.
Mouse and the Women, The Exterminator, Times Square, he was in Arthur, Vigilante, The Soldier, Banzai, The Brother from Another Planet, Dukes of Hazzard. He played an episode on Dukes of Hazzard. He was on. He was one of the guys at the table in Weird Science when they go to the bar. American Ninja, The Delta Force. Not Delta Force, but The Delta Force. Starring Chuck Norris and Lee Marvin. So that might actually be the original Delta Force. POW, The Escape, Cat Squad, Avenging Force. One episode of Moonlighting, American Ninja 2, Johnny Be Good. He was in I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker.
That's what I thought.
Yes. American Ninja 3, Pee-wee's Playhouse. He did an episode. But what if I would have told you, have you seen Weekend at Bernie's?
I didn't know there was a second one until I saw this list.
You haven't seen Weekend at Bernie's? Weekend at Bernie's 2 is the better movie. At least the funnier one to me. Weekend at Bernie's is great. Weekend at Bernie's 2 is phenomenally just so much funnier because in this one, Bernie can walk. Like, dead Bernie can walk in this one.
Alrighty.
But only when there's music playing. And he plays one of the thugs that are hired by the Voodoo Queen to go fetch Bernie. He plays Henry.
Okay.
Yeah, you have a mission you need to watch tonight. I forgot about doing that again, didn't I? You need to watch Weekend at Bernie's too.
Yes. I was fixing to type in, hey, we forgot that other movie thing we were doing.
Yep, and I watched something specifically for that this week, and I really enjoyed it. So let's go ahead and do that real quick, and I'll get back into the people who were in the actors in the movie. Jen, what did you read or watch this week?
I watched Titan AE, and I'm gearing down for the interview this evening with Joe DeRowan, and I've been reading through his different short stories.
Very nice. Anything to say about Titan AE
or the short stories? I have loved Titan AE, and I loved when it came out. I was younger, so I read all the books that they put out for the younger audiences. I loved those. I just loved the entire storyline and the offshoot stories that they made. And Joe DeRowan, he is very good. Not good. He is great at making you feel the characters. They are so human. The human, how they would react and what they would do and what you feel you might do in their situation is so similar. He's just a great storyteller of human experience. All of it's fiction, but hopefully you get what I mean.
Yeah, he's good. He's good at pulling the humanity out of the characters.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. Hope you guys make sure you guys tune in tonight for that. So I watched something this week. Hold on one second. Sorry, I thought I had to sneeze. But I put regardless. On. Thank you. But I watched. I didn't realize that it was on Tubi yesterday, so I put this on. As I was sitting in the house, just working on stuff for the wrestling podcast last night, and I watched from 2023. It's a movie I have actually talked about on the show. 2023's Frogman. It is a first-person or a found-footage style horror, POV horror, and it's about this guy when he was younger. Him and his sister had an encounter with the Frogman. Fast forward to when he grows up. It is all based in Loveland, Ohio, of course, right outside of Cincinnati. But which I believe they just had the Loveland Festival last week, I believe, which is weird to do it in February. But fast forward years later when he's an adult, and he's basically getting really tired of people calling him a liar, that he didn't see the Frogman or anything like that. So he takes his buddy and a girl. I thought it was his sister at first, but I guess it was a girl that he's been friends with for years, that they hooked up one time, which it really didn't need to be part of the story. It kind of just really didn't matter that they'd hooked up the one time. But they go to Loveland and start interviewing people to go into the woods and find the Frogman. So while they're in the woods, though, they do find the Frogman, and it's a guy in a rubber suit. And when he goes and confronts the person who he says hired him, she tells him, "You need to get the fuck out of town right now." And a mystery goes on from there. But I would suggest watching it. It was actually, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was really good. It's one of those things, though, that you look and they like do a scene where his ex-girlfriend, the girl who dumped him, she's moving to California, and they show the party, and just the entire time of the party, you're like, really, I don't understand why we're doing this. Because there's really nothing that ties into the story. But definitely watch it. It's on Tubi. I believe it is on Prime as well. But Frogman, it came out in 2023.
On my list of things to try next.
Yeah, it was, like I said, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the movie a lot more than I thought a lot more than I thought I would, because I haven't really found a good. I love found footage horror, but I haven't found really too many good ones since Grave Encounter came out, and even that one, like the first part of that movie, kind of sucked. But once they started doing the scare,
Hello.
I think a ghost just threw my microphone off the desk. Because that thing like flew at me. I think I'm pissing my mother off. My mother's on the desk. My mother's in a box on the desk beside me, so she might be pissing her off.
That's a possibility.
Possibly. She's vengeful like that.
I didn't know if you were for real or making fun of the earlier thing. So.
No, I think I may have pulled the cord or something. In all factual honesty, but it wouldn't shock me because she's done. I 100% do believe my mother is haunting this house.
Well, that's okay. My friend's grandmother is haunting our house. So, nice. Well, it was her house before we got it, so it would make sense.
Yes. Well, and the thing about like my mom, like about a week or so after she passed away, we decided to make one of her signature dishes. We always call it bean dish, but it's like a dish with beans. You put ground beef in it. You basically sloppy Joe. You put the powdered sloppy Joe mix in there with the beef and the beans. You stir it around. Then you put a bunch of those. You know that little 4-pack of biscuits you get. You take the biscuits. You cut up a block of cheddar cheese. You put a piece in it in the middle of the biscuit. Like roll it around. Like roll it so it closes. You take another pack of sloppy Joe mix, put it in a bowl, roll it around in there, and then you put it inside the mixture, and you put it in the oven and cook it like that until the biscuits are done. It's amazing. It's one of my brother's favorite foods. I'm the only one that knows how to cook it in my family. So I'm making it. Yeah, go ahead.
We just stuff it in the biscuit, close it up, and put it in the oven. Not the alternate way. I've never tried it that way.
Oh, it's delicious. But and it's something that she always did that. It's because one of the things I always begged her to do was write down her recipes for me. And this woman refused to write shit down. And my mother is, between being Italian and living in the South most of her life, my mother was not Southern. She was from Rhode Island. But we did live in the South. And as a Southern woman yourself, Jen, how much stuff do you actually have written down or actually measured? Let's put it that way.
Okay, I've started writing down stuff. Measuring, I've been trying to force myself into measuring and writing it down because my daughter's like, but I need that written down for me. So when you're not here, like Grandma, I can still do it. So I've been forcing myself to figure that out. Hence the cookbook we're making together and Fake Horror for next month. But measuring, I don't normally measure when I cook.
I've gotten to that point too now, but my mother didn't, and she'd always just tell me like, "Well, Mom, what am I supposed to put in with the beans and the hamburger in that? Ketchup, mustard, brown sugar. How much? I don't know, just whatever you want." That's not a measurement. So I've just started doing what I think is right, and it's tasted good so far. But as I'm doing the one can of biscuits, the second can of biscuits pops open with nothing. There was nothing there to pop it open.
One of two things. A, it'd been sitting on the counter so long it got too hot. Or B, she's like, you're not doing it right.
She was reminding me that it takes 2 cans. That's what I think she was doing. Because it had just come out of the refrigerator.
Ah, that's possible.
Yeah, it had just come out of the refrigerator. So I wouldn't put it past her that she was going, don't forget 2 cans.
Highly possible. Oh, and you're welcome.
Go ahead.
You're welcome to add your recipe in it, or any of your recipes with pictures next month.
I will consider it because I do have one dish. We call it taco dish here, but I think it's like a taco pie with crescent rolls and taco meat and that is one of everyone's favorite foods here that I make.
Yes, we need that.
And it's one of those very simple, takes less than half an hour to make. So if you need a quick meal, there you go. But back to the movie. We have Judy Aronson, who plays, I believe it's Patricia. Yeah, Patricia, the colonel's daughter. Or was it the lieutenant's daughter? I can't remember. She's been in a lot of stuff, but one of the things she was in before American Ninja was she played Samantha in Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter. She was in Weird Science, Sledgehammer, Mr. Belvedere, Full House, on one episode of Full House, the new Leave It to Beaver for one episode, Charles in Charge, After Midnight, Growing Pains. Like, she played a lot of one episode type things. Growing up, the last thing she was in was 13 Fanboy, which is if I remember right, I think I know about this movie. It is a fan movie it was directed by Deborah Voorhees. An obsessed fan stalks his favorite actors from the Friday the 13th films. So it's almost like a New Nightmare meets the New Nightmare meets Jason, right? Friday the 13th style. So the last person we're going to talk about is Black Star Ninja. That is his name. That's the only thing they call him in the movie is Black Star Ninja. He is played by a man named Tadashi Yamashita. Mr. Yamashita is I believe, a karate master. Because in his bio, it says Master Yamashita was born in Japan but considers himself Okinawan. He lost his father at the age of 3. Since his 8th, he lived in Okinawa, and since his 11th, he practiced martial arts. He was a rough kid, not only fighting with students but also teachers. When trying to handle him, a martial arts teacher was called in who learned Yamashitado. My apologies. He basically taught Yamashitado to control his temper with martial arts. Since then, he was no longer aggressive but talented. And at the age of 16, Yamashita... Really? I think somebody's messed up there because it is Yamashita. I was right the first time. Would receive his black belt and in 1960 he became the all-Okinawan Shurin-Ryu free sparring grand champion. He lived in Okinawa until 1972, and when he left to come to the USA, where he became a citizen. Yamashita has dedicated over 40 years of his life to the practice of Okinawan Karate-do, and Kobudo. He is a 10th dan in both Karate-do and Kobudo. Yamashita is the president and director of U.S. Shorin-Ryu Karate Association, the USA president of the Zen Okinawan Kobudo Association, and chief instructor of Shorin-Ryu in the United States. Yamashita combines many progressive fighting tactics with traditional aspects of Karate-do. So this guy is like a legend in karate from reading all this stuff. The last movie that he worked on was a movie called Dragon to Dragon in 2018. But he was in American Ninja, and then he returned in American Ninja 5 as Tadashi. The first movie he was in, and as a martial artist, I don't think you can get any bigger than this movie. But Jen, how much do you know about martial arts movies?
Very little.
I'll say like the classic ones. Well,
yeah.
When you hear Bruce Lee, do you know any of his movies?
Few. I know I've seen all of them at one point.
The first movie that Tadashi Yamashita acted in was Enter the Dragon. That would
then
be...
I was right.
Yes, it's Enter the Dragon, one of Bruce Lee's most famous movies.
Oh, yeah.
From there, Bronson Lee championed the Karate 2, a lot of old school 70s kung fu karate movies, The Octagon, The Shinobi Ninja, Gymkata. 1985, of course, American Ninja. He was in 2 episodes of Knight Rider, Capital Punishment, American Ninja 5, Cage 2, Pocket Ninjas. I'm only reading half of what he's been in.
Yeah.
Like, this guy is kind of a legend. But now that we've wrapped that up, there's a bunch of other people in the movie, like Don Stewart, who plays Ortega, John Fujioka, who plays Shinyuki, and, a few others. A bunch of these other ones don't even have headshots on their... they don't even have, like, headshots on their IMDb pages, so I'm not going to read them out. Let's go ahead and jump into the movie. Ugh. So the movie opens with the MGM logo, and then that, if you are an 80s kid or a fan of 80s movies, you see that Canon logo come on the screen, and you know you're about to watch something legendary.
Oh, yeah.
I love the Canon logo. But the movie opens up on an Air Force base, or on an Army base, as a bunch of military trucks and a green car show up. The camera pans up, and we are at Fort Sonora, U.S. Army Supply Group, Sachulang Kabata Jambro. I'm probably butchering the hell out of that name, but it's supposed to be the Philippines. We cut to a group of guys, about 5 guys, playing hacky sack. I think everybody knows what hacky sack is, right? I don't need to explain what hacky sack is.
You shouldn't have to.
Yes. So they're playing hacky sack, and we cut over to the star of the movie, Joe Armstrong, the main character, and he's playing with a switchblade. We cut to another guy who's loading the back of another car up with suitcases, who's talking shit, saying about how great he is at hacky sack. He calls over to Joe saying they need an extra guy, and Joe basically just completely fucking ignores him. Joe is the strong, silent type. So he goes and shows off a little bit, kicks the hacky sack over by Joe, and he asks Joe to return it. Joe basically just stares at him like, fuck off. Needless to say, Joe doesn't throw the bag back, so the guy it's Larry, I think was his name, goes over and picks it up and starts lecturing about how a little teamwork, they like teamwork around here, and that loners don't go too far in this outfit. And then out walks the colonel and his daughter. So, of course, being a military base, everybody's like, oh, shit. Gotta pretend we're people we're not. The daughter says goodbye to her dad, and Charlie, the guy's name's Charlie, not Larry, gets in the back of the car. She is going to be wherever they're going. They don't really say where they're going, but they're taking her somewhere, and the sergeant promises that the colonel that his daughter will be safe with him. With Charlie driving, the sergeant gets in the passenger seat, and they don't say where they're going. All the other men get into their trucks, and they start, basically it's a convoy. Now, I'm not a military person, but I'm pretty sure the civilian car shouldn't be leading a convoy. That doesn't seem too smart, especially with a high priority target like, I don't know, the colonel of the military bases in a foreign land's daughter. So they leave the compound. They're just driving around. We get the opening credits as they're driving. We get the montage of them going around the island and that. Pretty scenery in that, but it's literally it's nothing, but music playing and the credits. So they come to this roadblock that is supposed to be construction, and they stop the convoy from going forward, and they move a piece of heavy equipment in the front of it, and as Joe realizes, behind them. So the guy, Charlie talks to the guy in the front about what's going on and some stuff like that. And as he's doing this, though, a bunch of guys come out of the woods or come out of the jungle with automatic weapons and essentially take everybody hostage. The sergeant tells them to do what they say. There's no reason for anybody to die. The guys start taking off their suits and their uniforms and that. Meanwhile, Patricia's in the back of the car and tells Charlie to get in and fucking gun it. Let's get the hell out of here, which would have been the smart thing to do, you would think. Uh-huh. But the guy hears him do this, grabs Charlie, and fucking shoves his head through the driver's side window. Patricia screams, and essentially Charlie's lucky he didn't get fucking shot. Patricia gets out of the car and starts cussing at the guy, who in turn bitch slaps her and throws her back into the car, which pisses Joe off, and Joe comes up to try to help her. The guy starts shoving Joe with his gun, and Joe punches him in the face, and the other guys pull their guns on him. Patricia takes the car and tries to speed off, and apparently she's a terrible driver.
Very.
Because she just spins out. So they start shooting at her, and apparently these guys, I realized immediately, these guys are essentially stormtroopers because they don't hit shit except her tire. The car goes into the woods. It ends up getting flipped. Joe breaks free and starts just beating the crap out of everybody. Then the rest of the army guys are like, all right, fuck it. If he can do it, let's go. Let's beat the shit out of these guys. So the army guys who are not armed start fighting with the guys who are armed with guns. The one guy in the front who bitch slapped Patricia starts shooting at him. Starts shooting at Joe. He opens a kind of like a toolbox and just starts throwing shit at people. He hits the original guy, in the shoulder with the screwdriver. Another guy starts shooting. He gets hit in the face with a fucking crowbar. And then a third guy gets hit with the I think it's called like the 4-star lug wrench.
Yes.
Yeah, he gets hit in the face with that. He gets knocked. Dude had a pistol. Go back to the other guys. They're fighting. They're trying to fight these rebels off. And they're doing a really good job. Pretty much beating the crap out of them. And then we see Black Star Ninja appear in the jungle, watching basically the guy he works for's team getting their asses handed to him. And then he looks over and sees Patricia climbing out of the car. And apparently Patricia doesn't realize there's a bunch of fighting going on, as a palm tree falls and almost hits her. More fighting is going on as the guys are trying to get these supplies out of there. One guy gets into the truck and starts driving off. Hold on. He tells the guy to go. It starts speeding off. He goes and he hits the bulldozer that's blocking the road. He tries to go around the bulldozer for some reason. And he gets away, and the rebels are telling another guy to go after him in another truck. He gets in that truck, so naturally, Joe, being the hero, jumps on that truck and to stop him from chasing the other guy. While he's doing this, he takes the chain that is holding the tailgate, I guess, of the truck closed and climbs on top and walks to the front, throws it down, busts through the front window, grabs the steering, hits the steering wheel, turns it, jumps off the truck. The truck hits, or I guess goes around the bulldozer, flips over, and fucking explodes in 1980s action movie fashion. So that is literally that's a 1980s trope where shit would just blow up for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because, there's no reason that truck blows up.
None whatsoever I could find.
Yeah, but it goes up in a huge ball of flames. We go back to the fighting. The Americans are still winning the fighting. But then Black Star Ninja sends 3 of his guys down, and the tides change. And it was funny because, the first ninja jumps down, the guy turns around a machine gun and starts to fire. He jumps backwards up onto the truck. The guy shooting at him, he gets shot in the back with a bow or with an arrow. There's basically a ninja in a palm tree shooting arrows at him. Another soldier sees him, shoots and kills that guy. 2 more ninjas come out of the jungle, basically hog tie him with chains and kill him. Another ninja pops down, gets a bow, and it has a blade on the end, and he starts stabbing people. Just fucking soldiers are dying left and right now. These ninjas have taken over the fight. Another guy is trying to get Patricia. She tries to fight him off. We go back and we see that all the soldiers are now dead, while Black Star Ninja looks on. And a line of 5 ninjas has formed on the ground for no reason whatsoever. So we go back. The guy, when Patricia showed back up, Joe shows up behind him. The guy shoots at him, misses. He sits in, he kicks him a couple of times. The guy grabs a shovel and goes to swing at him. Joe kicks him, and he falls backwards and lands on a pickaxe. That guy's dead. Then the ninjas start shooting arrows at Joe, and he knocks him away with the shovel and then catches another one that almost hits Patricia right in the face. Black Star Ninja looks pissed. Joe breaks the arrow. I think that's some kind of insult in ninja. The 6 ninjas who are kneeling down, forming a line, now go chasing after Joe, and Black Star Ninja comes down and starts asking the captain who the hell that guy was. And, the captain basically tells him, I don't know. He's a new recruit. I don't even know his name. Black Star Ninja says he possesses great skill. So that's the beginning of the movie. Jen, what are your thoughts? It's our first fight scene.
It's generally a fun fight scene, but also there's a whole lot of watching it as the picky adult. I've seen it's different now than the 25 times I watched as a kid.
Yes, definitely. I mean, the fight scenes are kind of, like I said, it's meant to be cheesy. It's meant to be campy, so I give it a pass. It was still fun to watch. So we go back into the jungle. Joe has Patricia, and they're trying to outrun the ninjas. Now, Patricia won't shut the fuck up.
No.
She's doing that nagging, why are we doing that here? I'm in the middle of the jungle. I shouldn't be in the middle of the jungle. Oh, there's mosquitoes over there. Why are the mosquitoes? Lady, shut the fuck up. There are ninjas chasing us.
This is the part where I'm like, this person was not raised as a military kid.
No.
Her mom had to have died, and she ended up having to finish being raised by her dad or something, because she's acting like a spoiled city kid.
Yes.
That has no idea what actually happens when you're on site in another country.
Yeah, because she is bitching nonstop, and at some point, you turn around and go, we're trying to hide from people. We're running away from people who are trying to kidnap you. Maybe shut the hell up so they don't know where you are. But they go, they're still running. The ninjas are chasing. He finally gets her into a ravine and covers her mouth. The ninjas can't find her, so they run off. He pulls her, and she's still bitching and crying, bitching at him, saying, I can't move as fast as you. So he bends down and grabs her shoes, and she starts complaining that those are from Italy. You're going to buy me another one. Breaks the heels off the shoes, takes a knife, cuts her skirt, and she's throwing a fit the entire time. Takes her skirt and turns it into shorts, essentially. And now it's like, shut the fuck up. Now you can run. So they're running still. The ninjas are still after them. They get to this ravine, essentially, and they're going to have to go into the water. And she's like, oh, no, I'm not going in there. There's leeches in there. Yeah, well, there's death behind us, so in we go. They jump into the water. The ninjas come around. Swear to God, they heard a splash. They look around. These are not very good ninjas, because they just go, meh, guess no one's here. And they run off. Back at the trucks, Black Star Ninja essentially sends the rest of the army guy of his team's army guys, or the rebels, off to take the trucks and steal the supplies. In the woods, or in the jungle, basically the ninjas have lost Joe and Patricia. They pop out of the water, and Patricia is still bitching at him. She says, she's like, would you look at me? Look at my shirt. Look at my hair. It's a mess. You'll fucking live. She asks him for a comb. He's like, I really don't have one. I don't really have a comb. So he tells her that they're going to have to hang their clothes out to dry. So needless to say, she's going to have to get naked. But she ends up hiding behind a bunch of brush and stuff like that. So he doesn't see anything. We don't see anything. And she starts flirting with him. And now, if I'm him, and I'm with this woman in the woods, and she's constantly bitching at me, nonstop, I really don't think flirting is going to work now. Because there are so many red flags that I couldn't keep up.
Sorry about that.
You're fine.
I don't know if you said something to me. There was a slight problem, and Josh was like, I need clarification.
That's fine. No, I'm just talking about how while they're undressed, while their clothes are hanging up to dry, she starts flirting with him. She starts flirting with Joe, and I was telling the people at home, I'm not well versed in, romance or anything like that. I'm really not. But if I'm running through the woods with somebody and she's being a complete stuck-up bitch like this woman has been, and she starts flirting with me, I'm sorry, there's so many red flags in the past hour running away from ninjas, you wouldn't shut up, for starters.
You have no common sense.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to work out between us. One
would think one day.
Yes. But she keeps trying to flirt with him, and he tells her that they need, I guess it's been a while, so they need to get dressed. We cut back to the base where all the bodies of the soldiers that were in the storage trucks or the supply trucks have been returned to the base. And needless to say, the colonel is pissed. This is the third time that they've been hit this month. So it's the third time that they've had their supplies stolen. He tells me he wants every inch of the jungle covered before dark to find his daughter, essentially. He says to get on the horn with the chief of police and tell him to get his ass in gear. And he tells the captain that his ass is in a sling, mister, because, Patricia got kidnapped. The captain says, we tried our best, and the colonel's like, obviously it wasn't good enough, was it? So the captain... So basically the colonel asks, what happened out there? We never had any casualties before, in any incidents before. And the captain says we wouldn't have had any this time if it wasn't for the new man. Essentially saying that, trying to play off that Joe was playing the hero instead of, helping anyone. Colonel's pissed now. He tells us this guy's ever going to be sorry he ever joined the military. He calls for Jackson. Now we first get our first look at, was it Lieutenant or Sergeant Jackson? At Steve James as the military guy. He asks what, basically he starts telling the colonel that they were killed by ninjutsu, like by people who were trained in ninjutsu. And he asks if the captain if he's ever heard of it. The captain basically goes, what the hell is that? And he goes, oh, have you ever heard of ninjutsu, sir? And the captain's like, of course I've heard of ninjutsu. Well, motherfucker, then why did you just ask what it was?
That's what I was wondering.
So Jackson says, evidence this massacre was the work of ninjas. And you can almost see the colonel go, ninjas? Are you kidding? Like he didn't want to believe. Did you have something to say, Jen?
Yeah, it's one of those "are you serious" moments.
Yeah, like because I mean, in today's world, I feel like we got attacked by ninjas. Really? Come on, dude. If you didn't want to be here, you didn't have to be. So we cut back to the rebel. Go ahead.
I have said I wasn't attacked by ninjas, but there were little kids dressed up like Ninjago ninjas. Yes. So that would make more sense.
I mean, I was attacked by ninjas on the Ninjago ride at Lego World, maybe.
These were a bunch of 5-year-olds.
So we cut to the rebel compound where we finally now get to meet Ortega. Ortega is a Colombian. I believe I don't know if he's a drug lord or just a warlord or whatever. And we see Black Star Ninja with his mask off. This is the guy we were talking about, Tadashi Yamashita. Ortega tells him that until today, your track record has been spotless, but the truck with the most valuable cargo is missing. Got away. Another incident like this, and I might have to shut the entire operation. It's like, motherfucker, we fucked up once. Like, what do you want? So Black Star Ninja basically speaks Japanese to him. It doesn't tell us what it says or anything. But he tells Ortega that, well, they have a ninja. There's an American ninja. And Ortega's like, what are you talking about? There's no such thing. And Black Star Ninja's like, well, I don't lie. He says, I don't lie. And that he knows it's death to teach ninja to a Westerner, but I also know there was an American ninja there. So Ortega basically tells him that they need to kill this American, whether he's a ninja or not, they need to kill him because this is a multi-million-dollar deal. We cut to a fruit truck driving up to the base where Patricia and Joe get out of the truck, and I know it's not the base. I think it's just their house. Patricia obviously doesn't want Joe to leave, but he's like, yeah, I gotta go hit that dusty trail. And he takes off. He kind of doesn't want to either, but he's also like smart enough to go, hey, that's the Colonel's daughter. I probably shouldn't do this. Mm-hmm. He gets back in the fruit truck, and we cut to the base where Joe is essentially getting chewed out by the Colonel. The Colonel is essentially doing the whole, I suppose you think you're some kind of hero because you saved my daughter, huh? Well, yeah, kind of. That's kind of the definition of a hero. Joe says, no, sir. And the Colonel says, well, good, because I have half a mind to throw you in the stockade. Like, he saved your... Okay. Just what the hell were you trying to prove? Basically, it's the whole, you got a bunch of people killed because you just didn't do what you were telling. Now we've got 4 dead men on our hands, and there's going to be an investigation, and that he's going to be court-martialed, and he can't, and the Colonel says he can't help him, and tells him to get out of his sight. So then he turns and asks the sergeant, to read him his record, because he asked for his records and that. So the sergeant basically goes, date of birth, unknown. Parents, unknown. Next of kin, unknown. Basically, they have no information on this guy except that went to reform school and essentially he was forced to join the military. He was given the choice to enlist in the military or go to jail. So take a guess what he chose.
Military.
Yes. He's got more he says, he's been in and out of foster homes. He's got more last names than he's got stars. Like, just nothing but a problem if you read his paperwork. Tells him to keep Joe away. He tells the sergeant to keep Joe away from Patricia. Joe's walking down the military base with a bunch of more military vehicles driving by, which looks just great. And, we go to Jackson, who has his I guess division with him, and Joe walks up, and everybody's looking at him pissed. Like everybody's pissed at Joe. Joe walks by and heads to his bed in the barracks. Inside the barracks, there's a bunch of guys playing cards, relaxing and that, but they're all pissed off at him. There's even people like sitting on his bed and standing against his locker, and they're doing the whole, ooh, we're going to intimidate you. Yeah, they're not very intimidating. Essentially, they're pissed at him. They blame him for the death of the 4 people, the 4 guys. He lays back and he starts to have flashbacks of him and someone else essentially learning to do the martial arts. So then we cut back to the Rebels compound. Ortega is welcoming his buyer. We don't know or learn the buyer's name at all. But he introduces them, there's pretty women outside waiting for him. And he's essentially walking him around the compound, showing him everything, saying that he owns everything that the eye can see, and asks us when he can take the delivery and that. He introduces him to essentially the gardener, I believe he's supposed to be. This is Shinyuki. He tells the buyer that he's responsible for the beautiful landscape. That Shinyuki was a World War II, a Japanese soldier from World War II that he found hiding in the jungle, and the poor guy didn't even know that World War II had ended, which there are a lot of stories of that actually happening. Like they say, he tells me that he found him in the woods, jungle, all that, brought him back, and he's an artist when it comes to the landscape. We now cut to the ninja training compound where we see a bunch of different colored ninjas. Yellow, red, orange, green, like almost Fruit Loop colored ninjas. Plus the black ninjas. We don't see any white ninjas, surprisingly. But we see red ninjas climbing ropes. And they're basically doing like ninja obstacle courses and that. And he's showing off the training stuff. And then, so they go to the center where Black Star Ninja's waiting for him, and he's going to put on a demonstration against the Red Ninjas. Needless to say, Black Star Ninja beats the shit out of all four of the Red Ninjas that were doing the demonstration with him, including actually killing one of them. With a stick, breaks his neck. And as Black Star Ninja walks away, as he's walking away, Ortega tells the buyer that the Red Ninja sees it as an honor to die at the hands of Black Star Ninja. It's like, well, probably would have rather survived, but okay. So basically, they go to the car and they start negotiating. He's going to pay $4 million for whatever it is that they're going to steal, essentially. So they agree to the price. Now they're going to go celebrate with some champagne. What do you think of that scene, Jen? The scene with Black Star Ninja fighting the Red Ninjas.
I thought it was a good little martial arts scene. I really liked the obstacle course.
Yeah, that was fun to look at.
And the rainbow things. I was actually wondering too why they just left out the white ninjas. Probably because it's hard to keep that color clean.
I would think so. Plus, you can't do if you do black and white ninjas, everybody's going to start comparing you to G.I. Joe and with Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes.
And most definitely, I think we were watching G.I. Joe at this time too.
Oh yeah, 1985 G.I. Joe was still a big thing.
It would get bigger. Small?
Yeah, like G.I. Joe lasted a while too because WrestleMania 6, or right around 1985, I think is when G.I. Joe was at its peak because that's when Sergeant Slaughter joined the cartoon and actually had to leave WWF because of it. I may be off on the dates and that, but there was a falling out between McMahon and Slaughter over the G.I. Joe. But yeah, like it's one of them. It could be any reason. I do want to say that this second fight scene with him and the Red Ninjas was a lot less cheesy and a lot less campy than the other scene than the first fight scene.
Oh yeah.
So they're standing in the car. They decide to go get some champagne. Then we cut back to the military base where Joe is working on one of the trucks, and Jackson and his platoon are running by, and then he decides to stop and walk over to start giving Joe some shit. He starts talking shit to him, and Joe completely ignores Jackson. Charlie is kind of like egging this on. he starts telling Joe that we don't like glory boys here and that he lost some friends and that. And he wants Joe to come fight him. He ends up taking the wrench out of Joe's hand. Joe goes down to get it, and Charlie kicks it away. Joe tells Jackson, don't push it, and starts to walk away until Jackson goes to punch him from behind, or no, in front of him. Was it in front? Joe goes around and basically Jackson grabs him on the shoulder. Joe judo flips him over a plant into the grass. So now we got another fight scene. It's really not much of a fight scene. It's basically Joe hitting Jackson with a bunch of judo throws and that. Even at one point, grabbing the hose and starting to choke out Jackson. So Jackson grabs a stick. Joe puts a bucket on his head. Basically, he's almost showing off at this point. Jackson goes to hit him with the stick. Joe grabs the stick out of midair without looking and flips Jackson over again and does the whole thing where he almost hits him with the stick. And Jackson yields. Essentially, Jackson lost the fight. Joe offers to help him up, and he basically essentially now everybody's cool. Everybody's cool now after they did their thing. Jackson asked Joe who he studied with, and Joe basically says, nobody, I just picked up some things here and there on the streets. Well, now all of a sudden, the sergeant shows up and tells Joe. Jackson tries to cover for Joe, saying, this is, or for them, but I guess both of them technically, saying that this was a demonstration. The captain tells Joe to get back to his office, and Jackson keeps trying to say that he's the one that started it, but the captain is saying, nope, I saw everything. He started it. All that good stuff. Fast forward to the next day, and now Joe is on trash duty. Jackson pulls up on his motorcycle and starts trying to starts talking to him. Starts trying to figure out where he learned it again, and Joe again says he doesn't remember, he just knew it from childhood. Jackson tells him that his moves are too perfect and somebody had to have taught him. Essentially, Joe admits he really doesn't know. Joe has kind of amnesiac or whatever. But Jackson wants to start putting demonstrations off almost like a wrestling match where him and Joe face off and put on like demonstrations or fake fights and things like that and make money. Joe, of course, has no urge to do this. But Jackson keeps trying to talk him into it. Joe says he doesn't like crowds. Then Patricia appears, and you can see how they looked at each other, and Jackson's like, oh. So Jackson's already figured out that Joe has a thing for Patricia. And Charlie, apparently Charlie is taking Patricia off base, sending her back home or something. She doesn't want to go home. And she convinces Charlie to take her somewhere. And the next thing, all we see is it goes back to trying to get my thoughts together. So she wants him to basically leave her at the house, but he's got to follow orders. She convinces him to take her back to the house. Then we go back to the base where Charlie is showing up again, or she's at the country club, rather. I'm sorry. Charlie shows up and asks, and walks up to Joe and Jackson and asks them to. It basically says he has a dilemma that there's this girl he wants to go on a date with, but he's got duty, and he wants Jackson to deliver a note to her. Jackson says, "Well, I can't do that because I have duty tonight too." So Joe offers to deliver the letter, and Jackson's like, "Well, how are you going to do that? You can't leave the base." He goes, "I'll find a way." Cut to later that night. Joe asks Jackson that tells Jackson he needs to borrow his motorcycle. Well, for what? Well, guess how he's going to get out of the military base. Jen, you want to tell everybody how he got out of the military base?
He decided to take a ramp that was somehow ready to go and
how convenient
jump over the wall.
How convenient was that ramp?
That was plot armor convenient.
Yes. So he jumps the wall, rides away, damn near broke the suspension. And then Jackson essentially says, well, looks at Charlie and goes, well, now we got to get you some coveralls so you can go cover for Joe. Cut to the country club where Joe shows up with the note. And he walks over, sees the girl in white that Charlie was telling him about. She turns around, and of course, it's Patricia. They trick Joe into going on a date with Patricia. So we get a montage of them riding around on the island, and then finally going to dinner later that night. But Jen, who shows up at dinner in the same restaurant with them?
There seems to be that colonel or I can't remember the rank, the guy from the convoy and the war guy, the guy trying to get all the supplies.
That would be Captain Ronaldo and Ortega are having dinner together. So the captain of the military is having dinner with the guy stealing the supplies.
Mm-hmm.
Joe gets a little nervous because, of course, he's not supposed to be off the base, and Ronaldo's the one that made sure he wasn't supposed to be off the base.
Oh, yeah.
So Ronaldo looks over, sees Joe, and is like, son of a bitch! And he tells Ortega that that's the guy that, from the convoy. So now we know that Captain Ronaldo is in on this whole thing. Captain Ronaldo says he'll place him under arrest immediately, but Ortega's like, hold on a second. And basically he wants, a good look at the American. Ortega waves. Joe notices him. Ortega waves and tells Ronaldo, the Captain Ronaldo, that arresting him isn't going to be enough. We really are going to have to just fucking kill this guy. So then we cut to later that night where Joe is dropping Patricia back off at her house or at the country club, one or the other. He's nervous as hell, but she goes in, they kiss. We cut to the next morning where Captain Ronaldo is coming into the barracks. They literally have to wake Joe up. Ronaldo starts with saying there's some soldiers in this unit who think they can make a fool of him. And they don't know that he's been a sergeant in the Miss Main's army since before they were born, and even before they were sent to reform schools. He looks at Charlie and he goes, well, I understand you like extra duties, Charlie. Do you? Charlie says, no, sir. Well, Ronaldo goes, well, I heard yesterday you volunteered to do some, didn't you? Well, don't worry, Charlie. I won't deny you the privilege. You can keep doing them till I said you had enough. And that's going to be a long time from now. And as for you, hero, to Joe, you believe my orders could be ignored, right? You don't like the hard work. You'd rather be driving around town, right? So basically, Charlie's going to take over doing the dirty work that Joe was doing. And Joe has to take a shipment by himself to this warehouse down by the port. So he gets in the truck, drives all the way down there. And as he's entering, he sees these two guys on a motorcycle. And he asks, this warehouse 5. They're like, yep, it's right over there. He asks, where's everyone? They both, oh, okay, I'm totally going to drive in here. So he parks the truck and enters the warehouse, where there's nobody in the warehouse. As he walks over, a kind of like a spear, I guess, comes flying down from the top. And we see a ninja on top of one of the shelving units. He throws the spear at him. They fire, a couple more appear and start shooting arrows at him. They miss because, again, they're stormtroopers. We get a shot of them coming down from the rope, and then this is where I thought I always start getting the sillies when we got to watch these guys climb down ropes and that. So he faces up with a ninja, punches one, steals his sword, and then kills the other 2 ninjas. And it's that, cheesy ass, like, slash to the back that will automatically kill a ninja.
Mm-hmm.
So he's fighting off, and there's more ninjas popping up. We're getting another, basically, ninja style, one at a time ninja fight. But I thought there was one really, really cool one, a really funny one, where he's sneaking around a bunch of boats, and there's a bunch of, like, bags of rice. And as he's walking, some rice starts falling down, like someone's up there. So he just takes the sword and stabs through the rice and stabs a ninja right in the stomach.
Oh yeah,
I thought that one was funny. Kills the ninja, and of all that wasted rice, we see another ninja does like this the poison dart thing where he spits at him. It hits the dead ninja. He looks up, grabs a ninja star from the dead ninja, throws it up, kills that guy in the rafters. He falls through a bunch of boxes. And again, he starts slowly going through to the point where he's in an office. And as he's walking, we see a ninja that's sort of a ninja behind him. Then we hear the sounds of like the fighting, and we hear a thud. And then, of course, we see 2 more ninjas from the other side. The silhouettes of them come through. Then they both just get thrown through the glass. The other ninja goes to run away, and he gets. I'm assuming ninja starred in the back because we really don't see what happens.
Yes.
Joe is still walking around very silently, and there's a ninja right above him on like an awning that he knew about because he pulls it. The ninja goes to throw a chain around him. He catches it, pulls him down, and slices him as he goes down. Then we cut to where 4 ninjas jump down with a net trying to capture him. And as he does it, though, he swings upwards, cuts the net, and the 4 ninjas all hit the ground. We cut outside where the 2 guys who were on the motorcycle at the front of the warehouse are now stealing the truck. They lock the door. They lock him in the warehouse with the ninjas. We go back inside. He's fighting the ninjas. He's, with the sword net. He sits there. He gets knocked against like a bunch of barrels, but the sword he has goes into one of the barrels and stabs a ninja that was hiding inside the barrel.
And I'm like, did he sneeze or something? Is that how you heard him?
I don't think he did it on purpose. I think it was meant to be like one of those like comedic, funny kills where he just accidentally stabbed the one barrel that a ninja was hiding in.
Yeah.
Because that ninja just pops up and goes, ugh! and falls dead, which I thought was I laughed loudly at that. So he's still fighting the ninjas off. He's killing ninjas left and right.
My question is, how does slicing his legs kill him?
Hey, they're ninjas. So then another ninja throws down a chain or wraps around the sword that he has. He's pulling the sword. He's got his sword in the other hand. So he throws with his right hand and just lets go with the left. Kills the ninja he threw the sword at with the right hand. The other one pulls it up and it actually ends up stabbing him too by his own power. So there's two more dead ninjas. Reaches over, grabs the sword out, and kills the third ninja that was there. Cut back outside, and these guys are still trying to steal that supply truck. Joe jumps down, lands on the motorcycle that the guys were on, because one guy was taking the motorcycle, the other guy was taking the supply truck. Knocks the guy in the motorcycle out, throws him off, takes the motorcycle, and starts chasing the supply truck. Essentially catching up to the supply truck and crawling underneath it and holding on underneath the truck as it goes speeding towards the rebel compound. And apparently not once did anybody think to look under the truck that was coming from a U.S. military base to the rebel compound.
You know, there's this thing that they have about up and down in this movie.
Uh-huh. So, essentially, Ortega is there, climbs into the truck, and Black Star Ninja's there as well, and sees that the one thing they were looking for, it was on that truck. They do not show us what it is yet, though. Everybody packs up and they stay. Everybody walks out of the warehouse. Joe climbs into the truck, and we see it's kind of like a missile ordnance system, I guess, or like a rocket launcher, kind of. Mm-hmm. But he's in the truck looking to see what they were looking for. One of the soldiers comes around the corner and goes to stop him. Joe kicks him. A gunshot goes off, alerting everybody outside that there's somebody in the warehouse. Ortega tells the soldiers to shut the door and go looking for him. But Black Star Ninja stops him and says, no, the ninjas are probably better at hide and seek than you guys are. So they go looking for him. He's climbing around the raptors because apparently nobody looks up.
They don't look down. They don't look up. It's like, nope. Seriously.
Like, they don't look up. They're looking around. And random people start finding them. And of course, they just start shooting. Now, again, they are stormtroopers. They couldn't hit the broadside of a fucking barn.
It's a whole lot. Everybody's a stormtrooper in this movie.
Yes. Because basically, he's just running around, and every time he gets somewhere, somebody sees him, shoots at him, misses, and he just knocks him out. Essentially, he ends up in the jungle where he runs into Shinyuki, who basically he recognizes Shinyuki. Spoiler alert, Shinyuki is the guy that actually trained him into the art of ninjutsu.
Yes.
And he tells Joe basically he will know, he recognizes him. He goes, you will know me when the time is right. You need to get the hell out of here. And shows him to a cave, or I guess some kind of bunker or whatever. Joe goes running and hiding in there and ends up getting away from the ninjas. Ortega, pissed off now, goes to his car, picks up his car phone because, it's the 80s. We didn't have cell phones, but we had car phones. And calls up Sergeant Ronaldo and is basically like, dude, what the fuck? Tells him that, the American is still alive and all that good stuff, that the ambush didn't work. And that he knows about the missiles. Ronaldo is saying that he'll take care of it. He'll take care of it when he gets back to the base. Cut to Joe and showing back up to the base. And as he's walking in, the MPs stop him and essentially are putting him under arrest, that he's going to be court-martialed. At the end of the day, he's been accused of stealing the supplies that he was delivering versus being ambushed. So we cut to Jackson showing up, and Jackson thinks he's being that Joe's being arrested for being AWOL, and of course he wasn't AWOL, he was delivering the goods. And the guy in the MP essentially says, no, that's not what he's being, he was arrested for. He's arrested for stealing the supplies, not for being AWOL. So then we cut to Jackson talking to the captain, and he's basically saying, hey, it doesn't sound right. I really don't believe Joe stole that stuff. And Ronaldo's like, you should probably not get involved in this. We cut to Joe sitting in the cell. Really nothing, just looking almost like he's looking for a way out or something, but he just hangs out in the cell for a little bit. We cut to Patricia's house, where with Jackson showing up on his motorcycle. Because he wants to talk to the colonel. Basically, and while he's there, he tells Patricia that, hey, Joe's been arrested and your father wants to court-martial him. Patricia's like, what? I don't understand that. So they go to talk to the colonel. Jackson's trying to tell the colonel something isn't right about this. But the colonel is hearing none of it. He's going to be court-martialed. And the colonel is saying, basically, I'm not going to listen to either one of you. He's a criminal. He did all this shit when he was younger. Get the fuck out of my house. So we cut back to the compound by the pool where Ortega's having some food and talking to Black Star Ninja. With Shinyuki behind them. And he's basically telling him that the American needs to die. And he's asking Black Star Ninja if he can do it. Black Star Ninja's like, well, hell yeah, I can do it. I don't really, why would you even ask me that question? So Shinyuki's just playing with the flowers behind him, like, I'm not listening. Nope. Cut to the jail, and we see Black Star Ninja creeping around, climbs up a telephone pole, and it's this point where I noticed that there's a fucking ladder against the jail itself. And I'm sitting here going, that's conveniently placed.
Uh-huh.
So Black Star Ninja climbs the power pole, knocks out the power. Joe is in his cell going, uh-huh. Black Star Ninja crawls across the power cables. And Joe just basically starts planning. He just starts meditating, kind of, waiting for Black Star Ninja to show up. So Black Star Ninja starts creeping around on the roof. Again, there's that well-placed ladder. Conveniently placed. He's up on the roof, and he's over by the door. When the door opens, with one of the MPs coming out going, where's that damn fuse box? Another one comes out, or Black Star Ninja drops down, enters the building, tries to be sneaky, but another MP comes out. He kills that guy, kicks the door into the face of the other one, and ends up stabbing and killing him as well. Both MPs are dead. He actually slices one's throat, which is pretty cool. Knocks off the lock to the prison door. picks another lock to enter where the jail cells are, and then does that ninja walk all the way down to the hall to the final door where he knows Joe is being held. Throws a smoke bomb and opens the door, stabs the bed, and realizes it's just pillows. Meanwhile, another MP has just found the dead bodies of his buddies, pulls his side piece, and walks down, trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Meanwhile, Black Star Ninja finds Joe hiding behind a wall by the bathroom. Joe eludes him. The MP shows up with the gun and starts shooting at the ninja. The ninja essentially just kills him with the sword. Black Star Ninja Joe goes running out of the cell. Black Star Ninja goes chasing after him. And where does Joe go? Jen?
He goes to the truck area where he can find some way of hiding.
He climbs the perfectly placed ladder.
The perfectly placed ladder. I was thinking we were ahead of that. Sorry.
No,
I just want to add one thing.
Go ahead.
He knows everybody's asleep in the hallway or dead around him. Why is he doing all the flashy, weird little moves? Okay? And I can understand the sword thing. He's trying to judge how much room he has in the room to use his sword. But some of those moves were like, you're in the dark. Nobody's watching you. Why are you doing these weird little flashy moves?
I'm sure they have their reason. It did kind of look cool, though, with the ninja running and things like that. It could also be the way they do it. They do it to not make sound, because ninjas are not supposed to make any sound whatsoever, even though you can clearly hear the footsteps.
Yeah. How you tell they're not ninja, even though they're playing ninja.
But he basically uses the perfectly placed ladder to climb over the barbed wire. Black Star Ninja goes up the ladder as well after Joe does. And this is when they go to the spot where Jen was talking about, where he's hiding behind a bunch of vehicles. Black Star Ninja finds him. There's a little bit of a fight. Joe climbs on top of one of the armored vehicles. They fight around a little bit more. No one's getting the upper hand, really. As we get a little more fighting between Joe and the Black Star Ninja. Joe grabs a pole with a hook on it and starts taking a little bit of an advantage. Really, Joe's just trying to get away, though. The MPs show up and start shooting at both of them. From almost like a 50 cal on top of a truck or on top of a Jeep. Both go running separate ways. The alarm goes off. Everybody's running out of their bunkers, out of the barracks and that. Joe ends up grabbing Jackson, and Jackson asks how he got out of prison, and Joe's like, when there's no time, he's starting to tell him everything that's going on, that somebody tried to break into his cell and kill him, and that the sergeant's got some big operation going on, basically telling him that the sergeant is working with Ortega. The MPs are rolling around, and they end up finding the dead bodies at the front gate with a ninja star in his head. Jackson is suggesting that they go talk to the colonel, and Joe's like, that's probably a bad idea. So Joe asks Jackson to get him a Jeep so he can go stop Ortega from, making the sale in the morning. Jackson shows up with a Jeep, but has an extra passenger with him as he brought Patricia. He brought Patricia so that she could try to talk some sense into what they think is sense into Joe to go talk to the colonel. Jackson does make a really good point that we are the only two people you can trust. So he decides to go talk to the to the Colonel about what's going on. And the Colonel is basically like, you really expect me to believe this cock and bull story? Joe says it's the truth. The sergeant's working with Ortega, behind all the hijackings and that. Jax is ready to go back and get back to base, get some guys, and kick some ass. Essentially, the Colonel is like, you know what? I'll just launch an investigation. How about that? Now, Jen, does the Colonel launch an investigation?
No, the Colonel does not. The Colonel is exactly what we expected, and part of it.
Yes. The MPs all show up with Captain Ronaldo. And essentially, the Colonel is also in on the whole thing. Joe ends up escaping. While the Colonel and Patricia are arguing, Joe ends up escaping. He's telling, the Colonel's telling Patricia he served time in prison. And apparently that's a deal breaker for Patricia. Because she's like, is it true? I think, maybe. So Joe busts through the lattice window and hops over the fence and goes running. All the MPs are chasing him. Ronaldo's like really overly pissed, and he goes running after him as well. Now we get a little bit of a Jeep chase where Ronaldo is firing his gun out of the side of of his military police Jeep. They kind of get Joe sandwiched between them, but one Jeep hits a tree. Ronaldo's pissed. He starts shooting at Joe again. And then he's also he ends up throwing the guy driving the Jeep. Ronaldo throws him out of the Jeep and chases him himself, trying to pit Joe's Jeep. Joe essentially knocks him off course. The Jeep goes down an embankment and fucking explodes. I'm looking at this again. I'm trying to see, did it hit something? Why the hell did that Jeep explode?
For no reason.
It's the 80s.
For no reason at all. It's like Robert the Tire. There is no reason whatsoever.
Yeah. It's a fucking tree. It's a small tree. It's not even a big tree. It's like a sapling. It hits the sapling and it just explodes into this giant ball of flames. We go back to the Colonel's house where Ortega has shown up, and the Colonel's like, look, I hate to tell you this, but we're going to have to stop with the sale and shipment and everything. Meanwhile, Black Star Ninja is climbing out of the limousine to essentially go up and kidnap Patricia. Needless to say, Ortega does not want to cancel the deal, but the Colonel is like, yeah, we kind of don't really have a choice. Black Star Ninja breaks into the house and kidnaps, grabs Patricia and runs off with her. The Colonel is telling Ortega that he doesn't give the orders, that the Colonel gives the orders, not him. He says it's very easy. Ortega says it would be very, very easy for me to reveal your part in this to your daughter. What would she think of you then? And the Colonel just fucking drops him with one punch. He tells him that he'll be there in the morning to take everything back and to get out of his house. And Ortega says, well, you're going to regret this. Ortega leaves, gets into his car, and sees Patricia with Black Star Ninja in the back. And he's pleased. So Ortega leaves, and we cut to Joe, who is now at the rebel compound, I guess you could call it. And of course, it cuts to that now. But yeah, he just... commercial? Yeah, I got a commercial. I know he takes out Joe does take out a couple of guys up there on the... he's taking out the soldiers. Runs across the street. 3 fucking guys on the street don't see him. Like it's almost like it's obvious they're choosing not to see him because of the movie, but it's like in real life, it's like, hey, did somebody see that guy just run by?
Huh?
Like, he's not doing a very good job of being invisible. Let's put it that way.
No.
And the ad is almost over. Yeah, man.
You got this. You can do it.
So he's basically running through the compound, just taking soldiers out left and right. Not actually killing them, just like knocking them out. You know, these guys have families. It's fine. And I mean, he's like literally running up, was behind him. They turn around. Huh? Pop, pop, pop. Unconscious. Until he gets to one corner, and out of nowhere, Shinyuki shows up and grabs him and says, you know, it was you before the explosion. You know, he finally started to remember that Shinyuki was the guy that trained him. And they go to Shinyuki's room where they have some tea because, you know, we have all the time in the world. And we get some training montage stuff from when Joe was a kid of how Shinyuki was training him to be a ninja. Shinyuki named him Joe because it was the only American name that he knew. You know, it shows them firing the shooting arrows, swinging the swords with the poison darts and everything. You know, Joe says there's also so much that I don't remember. And Shinyuki says, there's a lot of stuff I let you forget so that you could, you know, so your mind wouldn't be in pain. But now you are ready. And he presents him with a shit ton of ninja weapons. The swords, the sais, the ninja stars, and everything. And he tells him that these symbols will focus the ultimate power of purpose. Jin, Retsu, Zai, and Zen. The Kobadera. The Kobadera is ninja magic. Ushinjitsu is the ability to seem invisible to cause fear and paralysis in your enemies. And he tells them to follow the Bushido, which is the ninja code. And apparently that is where Black Star Ninja is evil, because Black Star Ninja does not follow the ninja code. So the buyer shows up. The truck is ready for him to take, like, just right there beside the fucking cliff. He's got a bunch of paperwork that he can show to customers to get out of the country. Ortega asks to see the money. They show him the money, and the buyer's assistant is like, yeah, you get the money once we see the shit. Once we see the, merchandise. As they go, as they start to walk towards the truck, an arrow comes flying that Black Star Ninja stops Ortega from walking into. Ortega asks if he's one of them, and Black Star Ninja knows that is the American Ninja. Ortega asks, American, what do you want? Fires another arrow that Black Star Ninja catches out of the air. He breaks the arrow. So what does Joe do? He breaks the fucking bow. Why did you break the bow?
I don't know. I've been trying to figure that one out.
It's like, breaks the arrow. I can do that too. Break the bow. Like, dumbass.
It's like, what was the point of that?
They start shooting at Joe, and Ortega tells Black Star Ninja to get the girl. The buyer doesn't know what the hell's going on. He's just standing there. Black Star Ninja and two ninjas have the girl now, and they're trying to lure Joe out. She yells, Joe, don't come out. Ortega bitch slaps her. Like, this is like the third time she's been bitch slapped in this movie.
Yeah.
And she takes it like a champ each time. Tells him that he has 30 seconds to surrender or they're going to kill the girlfriend. Joe shows up and drops his size. Not the rest of his weapons, just the size. A puff of smoke comes, the ninjas start circling. A puff of smoke appears, and right behind him, in the ninja outfit, is Shinyuki. Master and student ready to fight together. They start fighting the ninjas, and it's that one at a time attacks, and they're just easily handling all these ninjas. Like, there's about 30 ninjas almost, and they're just easily killing them all. Throwing down cliffs. Like, he just bitch slap one, he goes falling down the cliff. She's watching, like, just in awe, and he's just, the buyer is almost, I can't speak Spanish, but I'm pretty sure the buyer's going, you know what, I think we'll just take our money and go. And Ortega's like, that's all right, it's fine, don't worry about it. Meanwhile, again, all of his ninjas are getting killed.
Yeah.
Then, this is the weirdest shit in the world. At one point, Shinyuki puts his hands together and fucking, like, fades away Luke, like, Jedi style.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, apparently he's the only one that has the ninja magic.
Yeah.
He literally disappeared.
Like, he just does that whole thing where he, like, in A New Hope, where Obi-Wan just, like, shuts his lightsaber up and goes, oh, and then gets struck down by Vader. Like, this dude didn't get struck down. He just puts his hands together and, like, fucking fades away. Appears in front of Joe to take I think it was a poison dart or something that was meant for Joe. It was just the strangest thing watching him disappear. Like, in front of everybody. It was a knife. Yeah, like.
Reappeared and took the shot for him.
Yeah, he took a knife in the stomach, like Dobby style from Harry Potter. But go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
And then it's like, alrighty, the heroic death, but it's like, why couldn't he just dodge it like he did everything else?
Well, he was taking, why didn't he just appear behind the Black Star Ninja and, like, choke his ass out or stab him or something like that?
That would have been more.
That would have been a lot more helpful. Then all of a sudden, in the distance, they hear some gunshots because the U.S. fucking military has shown up and they're wiping out the entire army. Jackson is literally on that 50 cal on the Jeep, just blasting away. There's armored vehicles. They're here for a fight. And this army stands zero chance. We cut to Joe watching these guys get mowed down with the bullets. There's even one guy sitting on one of the armored vehicles with a pistol just shooting people. Finally, we get the face-off between Black Star Ninja and Joe. They start with different, they got two sets of different weapons. We cut back to the military guys shooting everybody again. And it's weird because for somehow in whatever Black Star Ninja has on his hands, this dude has like a whole arsenal. But we cut to Jackson, and this really big Asian dude comes out. Or I can't really say nationality because I really can't tell. But this really jacked up dude comes out. Jackson punches him, and it does nothing. And Jackson's just like, oh shit. And they start fighting now. We go to the ninjas, and for some reason, Black Star Ninja starts climbing the rope, and Joe starts climbing another rope. But as Joe is climbing the other rope, apparently in one of he's got like a freaking whole, like I said, an arsenal in his hand because he's got a flamethrower in the glove that he's wearing. And like Black Star Ninja has a flamethrower in the glove that he's wearing. And he burns the rope that Joe is climbing. We cut back to Jackson and the big Jack dude fighting, and Jackson gets a fucking vice grip onto this guy's balls and starts twisting. So the guy, he throws the guy against the wall. The guy naturally bounces up and kicks Jackson in the balls. But Jackson essentially just starts. You got something to say, Jen?
I was just saying, yeah, that was just like, wow.
Jackson eventually throws him headfirst into a wall, knocking him out, and goes running off. We cut back, and there's still more military guys. They're finally getting up to the plantation house. One American guy finally gets killed, but yeah, they're just mowing down everybody else. Like this army stood zero chance.
No.
The buyer now is looking at Ortega like, you know what? I think we're done. We're gonna go ahead and leave. Fuck this. Everything is not okay. United States military is here. The buyer gets mad, slams down the paper, and goes, "No, we're fucking leaving." Because Ortega says you can't leave, you must stay. So the guy slams the paperwork down, goes to walk away. Ortega pulls out a pistol and kills the guy and his assistant. He takes the briefcase full of money. That's all he cares about. He goes to try to get away, even though there's a fucking helicopter right there. As he's trying to get away, the military has now arrived at the plantation, and they're just, again, shooting everybody. Even ninjas. One ninja gets shot. He pulls his sword out to fight, and he just immediately gets shot. Ortega has Patricia hostage, and he's trying to get in the helicopter, which I don't know why he didn't do that to begin with, but okay. Joe and Black Star Ninja are still fighting. Joe throws a couple of ninja stars and misses. Black Star Ninja climbs on top of the roof, throws a smoke bomb down, disappears. Cut to Jackson beating the shit out of somebody. And again, that now the colonel has shown up, and he's telling Victor to let her go, Victor Ortega. Ortega to let her go. Ortega says he'll let her go if they let him get into the hospital or the helicopter. He'll let him go. So the colonel tells him not to shoot, and immediately Ortega throws Patricia into the helicopter. The colonel tries to stop him, and Ortega shoots him. So now the colonel is dead. The helicopter starts up, and they start to take off. We cut back to Joe and Black Star Ninja fighting. Victor could have got away, or Ortega could have just flown away in a helicopter, but he's like, no, hold on. I want to watch this fight over here. So he's watching the ninjas, Joe and Black Star ninja fight. Go ahead.
It's almost like he's waiting for his best buddy to get done fighting and come with him.
Yes. Black Star Ninja starts to run away from Joe. Now he's got a fucking laser in the damn thing. Like at one point, I think he had bullets. He's shooting bullets at it, and then he's like a laser. They jump in the pond, or Black Star Ninja stops running, jumps in the pond, and then they face off with the swords in the water, in the pond. And we get a nice little ninja fight with the swords. And it's, what you expect. It's a sword fight. And eventually Joe ends up killing stabbing Black Star Ninja in the gut, slicing him upwards, and Black Star Ninja is now dead. Ortega's like, you know what? Let's go. So the helicopter starts to take off and flies close to Joe, who jumps on it. He's climbing up on the helicopter. Ortega now gets on the, the landing thing on the outside and starts trying to shoot at Joe. He's missing. Meanwhile, on the ground, Jackson has the missile thing, the missile ordnance that they were trying to steal. And he's, telling Joe, come on, Joe, get off there, get off there. Joe is now kicking at, Ortega loses his gun. Joe is kicking at him, trying to shove him off the helicopter. And meanwhile, trying to save Patricia at the same time. Jackson has the shot. Joe opens the side of the helicopter up, and Patricia's like, what the fuck are we doing? No, we're not going to jump. They get really close to the roof. They jump off the helicopter. Jackson fires and blows it up. Now, my question is, what did the helicopter pilot do? Because technically, you just killed an innocent guy. Uh-huh. Like, am I wrong on that one? Joe go ahead.
Did the pilot know what his boss was doing? Was he just randomly hired for the day?
I mean, he was technically not even Ortega's helicopter pilot. He was the buyer's helicopter pilot.
Yeah, but we all know what the buyer was doing. He was trying to buy weapons.
Yeah, but that don't mean he knew what was going on. He was basically he was probably like, hey, here's $1,000. Fly us over here and then fly us back if you don't mind. But I could be wrong.
Other times he's the career pilot for the guy, and he just you know what? I don't care. I just need the money to take care of my family.
For all I know, he pushes old women down the stairs.
True.
So Joe walks over. He's got Patricia in his arms. He literally drops her into Jackson's arms. He takes his mask off, looks over the compound at all the dead people. Roll credits. That is American Ninja. Whew. So, let's see. We have any trivia. It was released on August 30th, 1985 in the United States. Filming location was in the Philippines by the Cannon Group and Golan Globus Productions. Now, Jen, what do you think the budget was?
3.5 mil?
You overshot. It was $1 million. And this movie is seen as a success technically because on its opening weekend, in the United States and Canada, it made $3.2 million. Altogether, it grossed worldwide. It grossed $10,499,694 on a $1 million budget, which that's pretty good. That's pretty good profit. Let's get up here. So apparently in an interview with German media in 2012, Michael Dudikoff revealed that he was sweating so much during the later fight scenes, because he had malaria.
Oh.
Yeah, I guess he caught malaria. Steve James said in an interview that Michael Dudikoff was actually anxious about working with him since, Steve James knew martial arts and Michael Dudikoff didn't. And he didn't want to be shown up. Well, I mean, technically, if you watch Karate Kid, the only person in the entire movie who actually knew karate was like, I want to say maybe a couple of the side characters. Because like Pat Morita didn't study karate. Ralph Macchio didn't study karate. So James even requested his final fight scenes be filmed on the other side of the compound, far away from Dudikoff, to avoid any further problems. It wasn't until halfway through filming the sequel that the two of them set their differences aside. So originally, the studio chose Chuck Norris to star in this movie. He chose not to do the film because he didn't want his face hidden on camera. He said, if I'm going to be in a film, I don't want my face hidden. I'm going to be me. So, yeah. I think this movie's better with Michael Dudikoff in it just because of the cheesiness of it.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's all the trivia and everything. Let's get our final wraps up. Jen, how many ninja stars do you give this movie? Or let's get your final review.
I'll give it a 4.5 because despite the cheesiness and everything, I generally enjoyed it.
So for me, I'm going to go 4 just because the cheesiness is what makes the movie good for me. The cheesiness, the campiness, especially when you get to the second movie and it gets even worse with the cheesiness and the campiness. It's what makes it great. It's what makes it good for me. I mean, come on, they're ninjas.
Well, yeah. It's just one of those things you remember watching with family and you want to do that again.
Yes. Well, and like I said, the 80s, cheesy 80s action is in my wheelhouse with, the horror movies and everything. And this just hit the spot, it brought back that nostalgia for me and reminded me why I actually do love this movie. So yeah, 4 stars. I can do 4 on this easily.
Dude, you know what would have been awesome if we could have watched all these movies when we were younger as friends. I would have loved to see if we'd watched the same ones.
Oh, I was watching these movies and me and my buddy would go out and like do ninja stuff, do quote unquote ninja stuff and that. Like, we were crazy. It was crazy growing up. But we also got to grow up in a world where we could run the neighborhoods and shit, stuff like that to like all hours of the night until our parents got that. Until our parents who were at home watching TV got that message. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? And then they're reminded that they're parents and they have children. They have to go actually be responsible and find their children. But Jen, where can people find you?
In an hour, back here, same place, same time, interviewing Mark DeRowan. I probably mispronounced his name. You can also find me Fake Horror, Owlite. You can find me Jennifer Elliott author page, Corpse Garden Chronicles, and Friday with the Library in the Blue Box.
Very good, very good. And on Monday, you guys are watching a movie we've already done here on the Bloody Binge. Yes. It was our back to school movie last year. You guys are watching Class of Nukem High.
Yes, I'm excited to watch that again.
Yes, that's a fantastic movie. That's trauma at its best.
Oh yeah.
There's 2 sequels to it. Plus, they actually updated it. They're the sequels. They're not remakes, but they're actual 2 sequels that came out about 10 years ago. That are actually, I've seen the first one. I haven't seen the second part of it, but it was actually really good.
I need to go do that.
Yes. But as for me, you can always find me, of course, everywhere at the Bloody Binge Movie Podcast, on Facebook, on Twitter, X if you will, and on YouTube. You can find all the backlogged episodes on YouTube. every episode we've ever done, except for one. There is one technically lost episode. But I still have the episode, and I think I haven't uploaded some on Spreaker. I think the episode, the Rocky Horror Picture Show episode, is on Spreaker still. But everywhere else, unfortunately, you will not be able to watch it. As there's a lot of copyright stuff in there. But every other episode you can find there. Also, you can also find them if you're only interested in the audio only episode, versions of the episodes. You can also find it anywhere on Spreaker that Spreaker uploads, including Spotify, including iHeartRadio and Apple Podcasts. So that's all there for you to listen to the show while you're at work, listen to the show while you're driving in the car. You got a long road trip, Hopefully I can help you pass the time away. And of course you can go ahead.
I said, I definitely like redoing Shivers.
Yeah, Shivers is fun. We're gonna do more of that. I have a couple of ideas coming up on it. We'll see if we can pull them through or not. But you can also, of course, next Friday join us. St. Patrick's Day. We'll probably end up talking about the history of St. Patrick. Me and history of holidays.
Yay!
We'll probably talk about the history of St. Patrick's Day. How a lot of it is fake. How it really is, especially in America, it's really only a day to pretend to be Irish and drink.
Yeah.
But now who knows? Maybe I'll grab a bottle of Jameson and take a shot of whiskey on the air. Who knows?
I can join you. Except I think I have Pendleton.
As long as it's Irish. So next week we are watching Full Moon's Unlucky Charms. Again, this is a movie that I have seen before, but I've only seen it once, so it doesn't fall into that category. Like today's movie won't be included in the end of year awards of worst or best movies because I've seen this movie so many times. Next week's though will probably be included because, like I said, I've only seen it once. So, hold on.
Yes, guys, he had given you the list of movies to look forward to at the beginning of the show. Well, somewhere near when we were first talking. You can find us there. And as usual, if you have questions about where shows are, just remember, find Friday and message it, and I can always help you with a link or a question. If I don't know, I will message him.
Yes, I have everything listed on the Bloody Binge Facebook group. Sorry about that. I think the weather's changing again or something because I'm having a little bit of sinus issues right now. But guys, we'll see you. Yeah, we'll see you next week. Well, I think it just snowed again a couple of days ago, and it's supposed to be like 50 degrees again this weekend.
Yeah.
Like it's just I don't know what the hell is up with Ohio. Yeah, I don't know what the hell is up with Ohio's weather. Like it's been weird. It's been weird weather up here.
Oh yeah.
But guys, we'll see you next week. And as usual, be good to each other and keep watching horror.
And please keep reading horror too.
See you guys next week.